Hey everyone, I'm Eric.
I'm Gina.
And we are officially renovation masters. Maybe original plan was this was like a 2-month project, but it turned into probably more of a 9-month project. So this is basement. This is our Airbnb. It's a mess right now. Disregard.
If there was a second closet, just like of storage next to the laundry area, and I always thought it would be more of a kitchenette space because I don't know,
Because it
was
looked more like
dark
the
and
dungeon.
dingy, and cinder block walls and dried glue.
And the bathroom needed a nice full renovation. This shower was about 29 inches in diameter, so pretty small, not much headroom. We'll redo the vanity, and we'll redo a number of things. Stand by for the fun. I think we're going to do a double door right here. So this door, and then put a door here, and maybe make them pocket doors. I'm gonna basically build this wall out past the furnace a couple feet just so there's room. Gonna block off the furnace, and then this on the other side of this is the bathroom, but I'm gonna cut into the bathroom a little bit and make that the storage area. So behind this wall is a small storage room with the water heater, and on the other side the bathroom will be a little smaller, but it's pretty big already.
Mainly because I'm terrible at communicating my vision to Eric. Like, I would say things and he would think I'm talking about something completely separate. So really just to get us both on the same page, but also to kind of help myself visualize and like scale things better. We use this app called, what was it called?
Sweet Home 3D, I think.
Sweet Home 3D. It was like $10. It's essentially like building a Sims house, which was super fun for me. I'm a big Sims nerd. Kind of put everything in place so Eric could kind of see from a construction standpoint how it's going to look when it's done.
Yeah, that was super important and helpful, and I think we stayed pretty close to like the original plan. Granted, we already had, a shower and drain pipe, so that was going to stay in that spot, but I think, even down to like the details of the kitchenette and everything, it was pretty much all laid out.
To feel like this was a space that, was done maybe when the upstairs was done. Obviously, you can tell this was much newer, but it actually like flows, like, it fits with the flow upstairs.
We always wanted to renovate this one room in our basement because it was totally unfinished and kind of creepy. And that was the original plan. And we ended up renovating the entire basement.
So when I was working through the layout of the basement, I started with this storage room area and I really wanted it to be more of a rec room. So I really wanted like a game room. Eric and I love playing board games. He's super into ping pong or table tennis, depending on who you're talking to. So that was one of the priorities in this space.
We weren't able to get a regulation sized ping pong table. But
we tried to make
it's
it
okay.
work, but it was going to be the entire size of this room.
Yeah,
So
too much.
Yeah, we had to scale it back.
Right, so first things first is Demolition Day. Dun dun dun. It actually did not work out to just be one demolition day. There were various demolition days over the 9-month process here, but we'll get there. We'll get there. And just started whacking them. They came out pretty easily. No damage was done. So here we go, real time. A few whacks. Shook them all. I tried to keep them in the largest pieces possible because I'm also the guy that cleaned up this mess, and it was a lot easier to just move full cinder blocks versus a bunch of very tiny pieces that I would have to shovel into a wheelbarrow. So this worked out a lot better. To figure out whether or not it was load bearing was, one, look at the joists. The wall only went to this point, so these joists ran all the way over to this wall. You can see the other joists up there connected. So this wall, this is load bearing. This is a thick boy right here. That's your big boy. So the joists run over to there. You'll also see there's mortar packed right under the joists at the tippy top of that wall, so that shows that the mortar was drying after the joists were already put in. Therefore, that is not a load-bearing wall, or at least it's not a very well-built one. The parallel walls, the one I already took out, the wall parallels to the joists, those are clearly not load-bearing because there's no load above it that it was holding up. And yeah, I'd say that was the most obvious thing to figure out. If your wall is not actually holding anything up, it is not load bearing. This also ended up being a pretty fun technique, just wiggling the cinder block back and forth. It came out pretty easily. Or I'm just incredibly strong, one or the other. The last wall that I'll take out was a little bit sketchy. I forgot there were electrical wires running through it right behind it, so I was knocking cinder block on top of them, but quickly realized that and stopped doing that. Thankfully, no electrical wires were damaged during that. Some quick things here I didn't talk about. Obviously, wear safety goggles, N95 mask if you've got it. I don't have any work boots, but my snow boots worked just fine. Be safe, people. So yes, safety is important here. I guess just a little background of the house. It's a 1947 Cape Cod style house. So this basement was likely just a garage for a very long time. My neighbor actually has a basically identical house, everything from size to room layout to everything. So sometimes I would just walk over to his basement and make sure I wasn't doing anything I shouldn't do. Like take out a wall that shouldn't be taken out. Like the walls I'm taking down now. So that's it. Walls taken down. I will not show the boringness of cleanup. All right, so now a super fun part of the process, dry locking or waterproofing the basement walls. Right behind this brick is soil, right up to about that window. It was suggested in all the videos I watched that you put this very toxic dry lock on top of your cinder block, and that will protect it from being wet. I've heard conflicting things. Maybe that could be a debate within the comments. I've heard that the best waterproofing is just done on the exterior of the house. What this could do is trap water at the very bottom of the cinder block and degrade it. Yeah, I've heard all kinds of issues with this. You'll see I have a French drain that someone installed prior to me buying the house about 7 years ago. I've also heard countering arguments about those when they're just installed after the fact and there's no exterior things being done. It just degrades the foundation. I'm not a contractor. I don't know for sure, but definitely consult one before you painstakingly dry lock your basement. So that was pretty terrible. I watched one video where it looked like a guy did a wall nearly the size of this under an hour, he claimed. This took me at least 2 hours to do just one coat on this 16-foot wall. It wasn't easy. So I didn't even finish this one wall. But it's very tedious. It's very tedious. And I hate painting, so my hand is pretty cramped. Just finished up the first coat all around. I have to go up top a little further. But yeah, it definitely smells terrible right now, so definitely wear a mask. It's no joke. Got some pinholes in places I need to fill, but I'll touch those up and do a whole nother coat. So young, so naive in the renovation process. This is the first couple weeks. This took me 9 months, people. I learned a little bit more over time. And yeah, you'll see I patched up all these little cinder block holes, which, oof, I don't know if this was worth it. Also, time for the foam insulation. It also works as a vapor barrier. I believe some people install it with tape in between the seams. I did not do that. I was actually skeptical. So honestly, I'm looking at the numbers of these R value right now. This is a 1-inch piece of foam. It's a 5 R value. So, like the attic stuff I bought is like R30. Is this even worth doing? I don't know. I'd love people to put in the comments if they think this was worth my time. And honestly, these are like $30 a pop. So it might have been, I think I need like 8 of them. $200. Alas, I powered through with the recommended foam vapor barrier insulation thing. When I took out my bathroom wall, I realized that they did not do this. But who knows? Maybe taking the time to cut these awkwardly large 4x8 pieces was worth it. And yeah, really insulation, vapor barrier. I think that's what it's for. It's definitely not a vapor barrier because I did not tape the seams. But whatever. This whole process wasn't that difficult. I tried doing this by hand at first, and then I realized I needed to get a nail gun. It's not easy to nail a 2.5 inch, or actually I think I was doing 3.5 inch nails into it. So definitely get an air gun. I found one on Facebook Marketplace for under $50, and then I bought a new framing nailer. Put the top plate and the bottom plate right against the wall where the wall's going to be, and just measure up to the top, to the joist, subtract 1/8 of an inch from the lowest point, and then cut out your studs. Nail them into place, throw them up, and put them down. So, yes, the simplest explanation of studded walls. This was super fun. I was definitely crazy for thinking that I could do this by hand. That nail gun was an incredible purchase. I found it on Facebook Marketplace for 150 bucks and it lasted the entire renovation and still works just dandily. I also bought a DeWalt chop saw, which I could not find on my Facebook Marketplace near me, unfortunately. Alas, also something I'll probably have for a very long time. So yeah, framing walls, pretty simple-ish overall. Take your measurements, your bottom plate and your top plate. Those are the ones on the bottom and the top. And take your measurement up to the joist. And that's how long your studs need to be. I should say, too, if you have a very old house like mine, make sure you measure up to all the joists because not all the joists are exactly the same. At least I learned. And my foundation was not completely flat like they are today, too. So definitely measure up to the lowest point of the joist so that your wall is not too tall. Your studs are 16 inches apart on center. So the center of the stud is 16 inches away from the center of another stud. 16 inches on center. Pretty simple. Just a lot of work. And lifting the walls by yourself they're not super heavy. You stand in the middle, use your legs, boys and girls. Don't hurt your back, especially if you're like me and you have a bad back. So yeah, I got 2 walls framed up here. Biggest pain in the ass throughout the entire thing was I did not rent a storage thing or any sort of pod. Definitely see the value in that in hindsight. I got a little stubborn at a certain point because I already went so long without getting one that moving things around 5,000 times was very satisfactory. No, it was awful. Get a pod, 500 bucks a month or something. That would have been amazing. You'll see I'm putting up a very tiny wall because I was like, hey, I think I have a little more space here before I enclose this furnace. So my earlier measurements said maybe I should have a big area for the furnace, but you can fit in there just fine. That was one of the cooler things of doing a DIY renovation was you can stop at any point and assess the situation. Is this wall the length it should be to maximize the space? And I answered that question this time by installing a very tiny wall and made it about 16 inches bigger. 16 inches of livable space, square foot, whatever. But yeah, that was a cool part of it. This wall that I'm building now will eventually have 2 very large grates that I got from this company in California. That was ridiculously expensive. They were like $500, but they look really cool. And it was a nice little touch. You'll see that later on. Because, yeah, it's a gas furnace. You got to let air in there, or combustion could equal explosion. The last wall I'm putting up here was originally going to just be a hidden drywall door where you push on the drywall and it opens, but I ended up doing a built-in bookshelf. I saw a video of someone making one of those, and that looked a lot cooler. You'll see I almost put it on backwards here too, because I wanted the door on the left side towards the back of the furnace, which is where the pilot light and all that stuff is. So, yes, tacked it up into the joist with the framing nailer and used a ramset nail gun with gunpowder to shoot it into the floor. And I've never fired a gun before, so that was a little scary. Make sure you wear earplugs. I wear earplugs for everything. Earplugs, my plug for earplugs right here. Pun intended. All right. Progress. We got the walls framed up at the top. I'm about to lock them into the floor with the ramset tool. It's gonna be my first time firing a gun, so it's a little scary. These fasteners, about every 12 inches, or just in between each stud. Right smack dab in the middle. I got my chalk lines on the bottom to kind of line it up and level it. And all it's going to do is hold it in place. That's all it needs to do. None of these walls are load bearing. They just need to hold up drywall and some electric outlets. See if I can get a wide shot here. Should be nice. Have a double door system over there at some point. And then, yeah. So 16 inches on center, meaning every 16 inches right in the middle of these studs is, going to be a stud. So they're not 16 inches apart between this gap. It's 16 inches between the center of the studs. So that's pretty standard. I think you can do 24 inches on center too. I don't know why no one does that. I think I saw the guy that does the videos in Canada, they're always 24 inches on center. Maybe they save some wood up there. I don't know. You got your pressure treated stud on the bottom here. Anything connected to the foundation or pavement needs to be pressure treated, so it's like waterproof essentially. You put your top plate on, which is just a stud right here. And then you measure the height from there up to the joist, and then subtract, I think, like an eighth. And then subtract like an eighth or a quarter of an inch, and that's how high your wall should be. I pretty much made all of my walls too short, I think. I think only one of them I was able to shoot nails directly into the stud. I think it was this one over here. Actually, this one's fine too. But a lot of these, they were too short for the nails, so I had to put some stuff in between to nail it up to. But it's fine. All right, so here we are demolishing the last part of the renovation, or the last bit of demo that needed to be done, to install a double pocket door. So replacing that one door that went into the previous storage area with a double pocket door. So that requires quite a wall cavity to do that. One of the top plate studs is at least 12 feet long, because you got to think of it as it needs to be 4 door lengths for a 2-door pocket door, because the door needs to slide into the wall. So there's a special kit I bought from Hartford Building Products, which was a double pocket door. So here I'm installing the rough opening for the door frame. You'll see it's 4 door widths wide. Again, there's going to be 2 doors in the center that are going to slide into the wall to create that pocket door effect, or the hidden door effect, I guess I should say. So this part was pretty simple. You'll see that's a very long door opening. but the kit comes with special split studs that you install under this for extra support, and so the doors can slide into. Had a little bit of trouble working around those pipes. You'll see it was pretty close to both of the baseboard water heater pipes, but was able to fit in, nail it to the joists, and then nail it to the floor with the gunpowdered actuator nails. So here I'm just leveling out the edge of the door frames or the rough opening. And that part's all done. So now I'm using the kit I bought, which was about $500, I think I remember. So you have to install these brackets into the concrete that hold up the studs. That really just kind of hold them in place. I feel like I could have got away with just gluing it as long as I was nailing it to the top of the stud and they weren't moving at all. There's a little bit better of a shot of me mounting the floor bracket, which holds the stud in place. And that's the piece I'm referring to that probably could have just been super glued or liquid nailed to the ground, just to hold the stud up in place because it gets screwed into the top bracket there too. So there's one set of the split studs I just installed. That's the top bracket that Gina was just holding up. It's a pretty simple design. It just has a place for the door to slide on, a little roller, and then you have the two split studs. So I'm sure you could make something like this. It's nice to have some solid steel studs that aren't warped or anything. So yeah, one side has two split studs and the left side will have the same. Pretty simple install once the brackets were on the floor. So after all of this is all framed out, the last step will obviously be adding the drywall right to the edge of those split steel studs. And you just screw it right through the steel. It penetrated it pretty easily. So yeah, double pocket door, pretty cool. Added a lot of open space to the suite. Today, we're gonna do the electrical wiring. I did like a roughing already for all the outlets. I think some legal codes are like every 8 feet. They're supposed to be 18 inches off the ground. I have a couple extra up here just for, I think we're gonna have a bar here. So I'll have like USB outlets and stuff up here. So next I'm gonna drill holes through all the studs to run the wire. Leave a little extra at each outlet just in case you need to pull wire later. And then I'm gonna go back through. These are our 12-2 wire. I think you can use 14-2. 14-2 is just 15 amps. This is 15 and 20 amps. Yes, so I use the 15 and 20 amps. 12-2 wire. It actually ended up working out well in the end, per the electrician who told me not a bad idea. If you use a 20 amp breaker, then you can have 20 amps run through the wires. The biggest pain was running this hammer drill. I think in hindsight it was just a pretty dull blade. It was incredibly tedious and painful to make all these holes throughout. One thing I realized too is not drilling them at the exact same height was kind of a pain, because when you run the wires and you're pulling it through, it runs through a lot more evenly if you have an even hole that you're pulling everything through. I think that'll start to make a little bit sense when I start pulling the wire here. It's going up and down and up and down. And if it's just straight across, the wire is much easier to pull. But it's almost kind of comical to watch this, because I think the electrician video I watched, he has it on a big spool and it just nicely comes unspooled. And here you'll see very tediously pulling it through every little hole, every little stud, little at a time. And I'm working my way all the way around this room with this one wire. There's one wire for the outlets, one wire for the ceiling, but the entire room, I believe, is powered back to one breaker. Yes, that's true. Which I think is totally fine. The electrician said it was fine. I did have someone consult on this before I powered the breaker on, make sure I did everything decent enough. And yeah, I think that's my contracting company. Good enough contracting. It worked out just fine. So, it is too late right now. I am rerouting the two cables from upstairs, the dishwasher and the kitchen lights. And I'm rerouting them through the basement holes that I drilled through my studs. And one thing I'm learning is make these holes bigger. It's not very fun. I'm gonna build a junction box for both of the dishwasher and the lights in the kitchen. Like we said before, you can't bury your junction boxes, so this is all gonna be exposed. That's one junction box. The second one's down there somewhere. Okay. All right, so this is our hot coming from the switch. So you just basically measure up like a blade's length, stick it in, and we just cut it. And then pull this back together, and we're good. So you're basically gonna go black to black, white to white. Then we'll tie the grounds together and then tie it to this screw so we can pause for a second. 14 gauge wire here, white wire, 14 gauge. There's a number 14 on here. It makes it pretty simple. So we're just gonna strip these off. Give yourself about an inch. Strip it off. Strip it off. And then there's only one ground on here, so I'm gonna daisy chain these three things together. Put this one into the outfit. But honestly, what you do is you want to make sure the wire's wrapped where as you tighten it, it's gonna twist the wire around. So I want to bend this wire back this way. So when I hook it around here, as I tighten the screw, it's going to tighten that right on there. So let's do that. So
I can't wait to never have to do any of this and hire someone else to do it.
Oh, you can do it.
I'm kidding.
Easy. Was that a fart?
No, it was my feet.
Sure.
But it might as well have been.
So basically I'm going to put my pigtail on it. This is a pigtail. Make sure all your cables are cut the same length. And then what you're going to do is just twist these together. So I'm going to line it up. So I just twist these in. And obviously twist it to the right. I think I twisted it to the right.
I like how all I hear is Jersey having a fit upstairs.
So these are all connected. Perfect shot. Okay, that's it. All right, now it's time for the insulation installation. This was pretty easy. It looks a lot different when you're done with it as well. It's cool to see progress quickly. It looks like a room. The main thing is you don't want to force the insulation in between the studs. So just make sure it's perfectly laying flat and it's not squished in there. The vapor barrier goes on the outside or the part in the room. That way you can use the staples to staple the little flaps to the studs. So you'll see I'm cutting down the middle here sometimes to fit it in there. But yeah, just don't shove insulation in there. So yeah, you need a staple gun, wear some gloves because it's fiberglass. I was wearing a mask and goggles just because I'm always touching my face. Cut nicely around outlet boxes. So again, you're not forcing it in there. And for the ceiling, this was able to be sort of just flex fitted in there. I didn't know which way the vapor barrier goes. It looks like it was kind of conflicting, or I don't even think you really need one for the ceiling because there's no vapors traveling that you need to worry about. Yeah, so pretty simple. Pink insulation, Pink Panther. Looks fun. And now for probably the most fun part of any renovation, hanging drywall. And it's that much more fun when you're trying to do it by yourself. I think Gina was out of town this weekend, but I really wanted to keep moving and saw some techniques online, put up a couple, 2x4 studs to sort of hold the drywall in place. I think I ended up just using one stud after a while, and it was fine. Because, yeah, these things are heavy. But once you get a couple screws in the top, it makes it pretty easy. I think the main thing there, you'll see me change the stud out like 2 or 3 times to get the height right. But it all worked out in the end. Yes, and I think you do 5 screws. You want to be at least an inch into the stud. So make sure you get the right screw lengths. For the walls, I used 1/2 inch drywall. For the ceilings, I used 5/8 inch drywall. And I did 2 layers for the ceiling with a green glue acoustic thing, slime in between it. Supposedly that really dampens the sound, and I'll say that it's pretty legit. It definitely worked. Because our living room is right above this, and you can't really hear what's going on in this room, so that's nice. And hopefully they don't hear either. I mean, there'll be footsteps and stuff, but as far as sound goes, it's pretty minimal. Let's see here. So yeah, safety, be careful with your back, people. I have a bad back. When I was doing the drywall cutouts around those outlets, I put on a mask and earbuds and everything. But yeah, otherwise I was just using a little tiny drywall saw. Like you'll see me use that here to cut out the window. You want to stagger your joints. That's a big thing. This room was kind of weird because it's 16 feet long. So couldn't really stagger the joints unless I, intentionally cut one of the 4x8 pieces of drywall, which that's probably what someone would have done if they were a professional. You just don't notice the seams as much when you're doing the drywall mudding if they're more staggered. But you see on the left wall there, there's like a 8-foot stud running from the floor up to the ceiling, or seam rather. So it was a little noticeable, but it's still not too bad. I was pretty diligent about my mudding, which you'll see next. So yeah, it looks like I got half of that in one night. And then I think this was a weekend, so I got to actually get moving on this drywall. I think in some areas too, I was just able to hold up the piece of drywall and then screw a couple into place. So yeah, I think 5 screws. on each stud, if that makes sense, like vertically. So every 16 inches, there's 5 screws going across the full board. Yeah, it gets pretty straightforward. I'm trying to think, what are some of the things that I learned about it. It sucks. It's heavy. It's a little backbreaking. But it legit transforms the room, so that's cool. Yeah, the tricks for cutting is pretty simple. Definitely get a T-square for cutting drywall. As you see, I'm using that blue T-square. Makes things a million times easier. You legit just score the drywall and then kind of kick it out with your knee, and it breaks perfectly. It's a pretty cool device, piece of technology that's kind of been unchanged. I think it's pretty terrible for the environment, so maybe someone can invent something a little more sustainable. And then when you're doing ceiling drywall, definitely get a drywall hanger. That thing was amazing. It was like, I don't know, $150 from Harbor Freight. And it actually worked out really well because I think the DeWalt ones and stuff are like $400 or $500. But if you're just doing one project, I think the Harbor Freight one will be fine. But obviously, professionals will get something that's going to last a little longer. The crank was a little sketchy, but yeah, so it's nice to have Gina here helping out, getting it on the lift. The panel lifter was a task, especially because this is 5/8 inch drywall, and that's heavy. I actually just Googled it, and it's 74 pounds. So it's an awkward heaviness, I guess that's the big thing, though. It's 75 pounds spread out over 8 feet, which makes it pretty weird to lift. 2 people recommend it. You can do it with one, but then the panel lifter slides around on you. I don't know. Save your back, people. All right, so here's the green glue slime. Pretty cool product. Highly recommended from the interwebs. And yeah, it worked out for me. It's pretty weird. I think it's supposed to like stay moist to like dampen sound. I don't really know how that works, but and you kind of just throw it on there in all these weird different patterns, and that creates like randomized barriers for sound. So pretty cool technology. You'll see I started to pre-cut a lot of the holes. I think because my drywall cutout tool was a piece of crap, which was also from Harbor Freight. So I don't recommend their cutout tool. It was a huge mess every time. So I just used a little hacksaw and tried to get my measurements as close as I could be. And then I would just kind of trim around the light fixtures if I was off by a little bit. But yeah, backbreaking panel lifters. Definitely recommend T-square, a really sharp box cutter knife, and a bunch of screws. And you're off to the races. And followed by hanging drywall, you then get to do drywall mudding, which is by far my least favorite part of probably the entire basement renovation process. The guy Jeff from Home Renovision's YouTube channel, he has a great drywall tutorial video. He does like 5 coats, and then I noticed that some contractors really just do like 2, but I was pretty diligent about doing solid 4 coats, really feathered out. the seams to make it seamless. So yeah, the first thing you do, you got to fill the gaps, get a hard compound mix, like a 45-minute mud. That's going to dry quick. So you'll see I did that, and then you start taping is the second step. So you lay out a bunch of regular drywall mud, which is I think it's a little thinner. I don't know. I think it's the same stuff. It just takes a lot longer to dry. So throw up a bunch of mud, lay the piece of tape across, just paper tape. It was recommended to only do that. Don't get any fancy corner tape or anything. Just use the regular tape. It kind of sits in the mud. That's like the stickiness. And then you just go back through it with your drywall taping knife, and press it all into place and pull the mud back onto the pan or the hock. I think it's a hock. So yeah, I only used a 4-inch taping knife for the corners, and then you'll see here for the big seams, I have a 10-inch hock. No, it's not a hock. I don't know. A 10-inch taper. Yeah, it's so tedious. It's miserable. You kind of like keep going back over it, and you're like, is that smooth? Is that flat enough? But you definitely start to get the hang of it. This is where really flat walls, or as flat as you can, is good. Your seams on you hanging your drywall is good, so it's all laying on well. But yeah, this was just God, I hate drywalling. And it's really just the mudding process. You got to go over all your screw holes 3 times at least. And yeah, man, you're going over and over this. My hand was super crampy each time I was working on drywall mudding. And then after each coat, you don't sand it, but you do kind of scrape off all the little chunks from the previous coat if there are any. I think that was the one big thing Jeff said too. Leave some of the seams, like just scrape it off the next time, because you want it to dry flat. You'll kind of see those 2 little lines there. I'll probably go back over them, but at a certain point you got to leave those and then just scrape them off. I am not using any terminology correctly with this. This was very miserable. Right, so for outside corners, you need to use a piece of metal. So any exposed outside corner, you're going to want to get that corner bead metal trim. Put a few screws on the metal trim, and then you're good to go. You don't have to get crazy with how many screws you put in. Just make sure it's staying in place, and then you sort of do the same process for everything else. Just throw a bunch of drywall mud over it and go over it a handful of times until it looks good. It's really all about feathering in this case. Feather, feather, feather. Yes, drywall mudding. Ranked as my least favorite project, and I do it in many other rooms upcoming. All right, so this was a very fun, quick little vented grate installation. The furnace is in that room, so obviously it's a gas furnace. You need to air it out because of combustion. So I bought 2 custom-made 30 by 10 inch metal grates from this company called Pacific Register out in California. You can get these at the box stores too, but I didn't like the designs, and they don't have them this large. So you can order it in all these weird custom funky shapes and patterns. I think there's like a floral pattern on this, so it looks pretty cool. So yeah, it was pretty simple. Measured out the hole I needed to cut and then mounted a couple 2x4s, which is what I'm doing here, just to have something to screw the grate into. There's 4 holes, I think, on the grate, or maybe 6. So yeah, I just needed something to rest the grates against and screw them into. And yeah, I think it looked really cool. They're a little pricey. I think these 2, plus I got 2 small ones, maybe 1 small one for the bathroom. It was like $350. So if you want to spend a little money, get some really nice, pure steel grate. Highly recommend it. I did have to do drywall mudding first, and then I screwed the grates in. And yeah, I think they look pretty cool. Some beauty shots for you. All right, now we're getting ready to paint. So first thing you have to do is sand. We should watch me move in some of these spots. It looks like I'm doing like a moonwalk or something in these time lapses. It's fun. All right, though, so as you can see, sanding is incredibly messy. Make sure you have a fan going, sort of pulling as much drywall dust as you can outside. I have a radial orbital sander thing on a stick that I'm just moving around with some high grit sandpaper. And then you'll want to go inside your corners with just your hand to get everything. But every little piece, you got to change the texture to like a smoother surface. That's what it's all about. You don't have to get crazy. Don't overly sand, but change the texture. All right, so priming and painting. This is also a super fun process. As you can tell by my non-sarcastic voice, it is the most fun you will ever have. The most fun you'll have since drywall mudding, priming and painting. So I'll talk quickly about it before Gina talks about colors. You'll see I'm using a PVA primer, which is what a contractor friend recommended. Put your first coat on clean drywall with the PVA primer. And then what we did for our lime wash paint is we had to put on a special primer for the lime wash paint. So that's coat number 2. And then coats 3 and 4 were 2 coats of the lime wash paint. Let's throw it to Gina though.
Other design goals is, I wanted it to feel bright in here because it's a basement. So I went with a lot of like white walls, and the wall paint was really important to me too. I really wanted to try to be sustainable. And when I was looking into sustainable paint options, this lime wash paint came up. And it was actually supposed to be really good for spaces like basements because it cleans the bacteria out of the air, or it's supposed to. So that was supposed to be good for basement areas. And I really liked the texture that it gave.
It was non-toxic too, mostly. So we got to, when we did use that, we didn't have to worry about masks and stuff.
Yeah, it did have a small smell, but it smelled kind of like fish weird.
Yeah, it was. It doesn't smell like that anymore.
No.
But it did lay on a little fishy.
Yeah.
The one downside is you have to lay on the paint with a block brush. Can't roll it. The floors were a lot of fun. We went through 3 or 4 different ideas, and we landed on vinyl tile, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but also fortunate, I guess. I really wanted like a plain black large tile in a herringbone pattern down here. And that
Wasn't
just
gonna
ended up being a whole thing. For one, like I'm sure you'll get into it when you do the floors for the construction piece of it, but the floors were just so uneven that we would have had to level out the entire basement, which would have cost a lot of money, a lot of time.
Yeah, I think when they built these houses in the 40s, I think today they waterproofed the ground differently than what they did back then. So I think water could generally just kind of rise, and there was drains in different areas of the basement. So everything was sloped from the edges to various points. And sometimes that slope was, over 10 feet, 4 inches. So you would have had to level out. And you can only lay tile if it's like an eighth or a quarter of an inch difference in slope over 8 feet, I think, which is basically like perfectly flat. So tile was out, unfortunately, because we would have lost a lot of the height too in certain spots. It would have been 4 inches higher potentially. And then we were looking into the acrylic look for a minute. That was just sort of sealing the concrete. And voiceover Eric is going to interject quickly. The acrylic that I'm referring to, I think it was acrylic, you see that kind of brown looking stuff in the main room. That was the acrylic pattern that was there. It really looks really bad because there's a lot of drywall mud on the floor now, but it didn't look that bad. But after drywalling, it was significantly worse.
Right, which is kind of what we had before. I didn't like the colors that they had. Previously, it was like a yellow, and it was beat up, and we had looked at that too. But then I really still wanted this like tile look, and then Eric found this really nice like black tiley look that was a vinyl floor, and I think it was a good move because the floors here do get really cold because it is a basement floor, it's a ground floor, so they get really cold in the winter, and this kind of insulates it a little bit. They just look really nice. They're a nice black neutral color. They have like a marbling look to them, which is really pretty. And they're super easy to clean, which is great.
We steam clean them, yeah.
Yeah, we steam clean them. And they just look great with the space. I love how they turned out.
They turned out great, but man, I was hunched over for a long time. Floor installers, I don't know how you do it. Because my back would be killing me after each one of these days. I would try and move around on my butt as much as I could, but you really got to get on your knees to hammer into place. Pretty simple to do though, overall. They're all like kind of like click and locks. You'll see very quickly I just cracked my back in the last frame for a second. But yeah, I did a 1/3 offset on everything. I think you can do a half or a third. I did a third. It matched the shower tiling. Not sure if that matters, but just thought it looks a little nicer. So 1/3 offset, and you just kind of click them and bang them into place. Fun times.
The sliding door to the storage area. Since that wall is really load bearing, that wall is fully cinder block. So we had talked about maybe doing a regular door there, but in the long run, I think the sliding door is really the best choice, because even if you put a door there, you're going to have like a huge cinder block that you're going to walk through. So the sliding door in that case, I think was key. I had purchased that door to match these nice pocket doors here, and then had the sliding door kit from a project that I had thought about previously but didn't end up using, and so yeah.
So we reused our own.
Excuse you. So we reused our own faulty projects, which was great.
Yeah.
And then I convinced Eric to not take the time to finish the storage room now so we could open up the Airbnb and make some money, but that's a project to come in the future.
I did almost finish it. I did the floors in there. That was worth it.
Yeah, the floors were worth it.
Knock out the floors.
Yeah.
Even though there's no drywall in there.
But it's a great space to put our tools and extra items for now, until we go through them and see what we need for the long run and see what we can resell.
You'll see these come with directions, so that makes things easy. I knew what bit I needed. I knew where I wanted to mount them so that they could roll on the track nicely. But yeah, I think this is a little easier than chiseling holes for hinges. Yeah, just big screws going through the door, this solid wood door, holding it together. You'll see I'm using a router now to kind of make what's the word? I don't know. A hole for the bottom of the door to slide on so it doesn't move back and forth. So that's going to sit on a little bracket, and then it's going to slide over it. And, if you can kind of visualize that, it's not going to move from the wall at all. It's not going to be swinging around. But yeah, this is a fun, quick little tool. Nice router tool. Made a huge mess on my nice new floors, which is why I vacuumed a lot. See, I think I made it about 1 inch thick. I could only go so far before you hit the glass too. So that was something to keep in mind. But yeah, that'll keep it sliding on the floor nicely. Super cool. All right, some pocket door installations. Yeah. I had to trim them a little bit. I forget how much of a gap you leave on the bottom. I don't think more than 1/4 of an inch. That sounds right, but I'm not sure. You want to give a little bit of room for the door to slide or expand or contract or whatever. So yeah, cut it. These doors came primed, so we just had to throw a couple coats of trim paint on them. Here I'm installing the brackets for the door to hang on. Pretty simple as well. Used a piece of tape, painter's tape, to hold it just precisely, and then threw some screws in it. And then you just kind of click them and push them into those things. And I had a really hard time getting it out once. I think I broke one of them, so I had to get a new one. But thankfully they sell them at like the box stores. But yeah, you just push them into place, and it's like a little knobby guy that hangs on the door, and then I don't know what to call the terminology, but there's a little latch that you slide over with a very tiny screwdriver to make sure it doesn't bounce out of the little thing that's holding it. And then we put some little hidden, are they hidden? Doorknobs on here. Inset doorknobs. What would they be called? Inset handles? Something. Put one on each side. And I think this is a standard 2 1/4 inch hole saw bit. Pretty simple to use. But yeah, definitely never drill. You saw me go back and forth there. That's just to kind of have a clean edge around where the hole saw is. So don't go all the way through on one side, if that makes sense. Don't drill all the way through, because it'll kind of like split the wood on the other side. So keep it clean. Keep it clean. Boom, baby. Oh, and then I use the leveler to see how perfect it is.
And then the super cool movable bookcase that
Built-in
Eric,
bookshelf.
yeah, Eric,
bunch of fun little
designed
trinkets.
and constructed.
Yeah, originally it was just going to be like a hidden drywall door, but we thought, well, it was definitely would have been wasted space, and it was kind of awkward where the TV would have had to be, so I think it's kind of a nice, I don't know.
Oh, it's a
little
super
accent.
nice addition.
Yeah.
Instead of having, 4 doors in this space, we have something that's functional, and like no one's really going to be walking in there unless they need to service the furnace. So it's nice that we can use it otherwise.
All right, and now voiceover Eric is taking over to talk about this fun project. Yeah, this was probably my favorite carpenter project in the whole basement. Built the door jamb custom, built the entire bookshelf custom, and I think it turned out really well. There's some trim on the bottom and some door trim on the sides. Yeah, it was really cool. Fun project. There was a video that I referenced online. I'll probably link it in the description because he was a very helpful man. A man who did his whole project barefoot, I remember. So yeah, I watched that video a couple times, improvised a little bit with our design. So I think right now I'm making the frame, the door jamb. And there were these hidden hinges that I bought online that were super expensive. They were like, man, how much were they? I think they were at least like $150. I had to get a special drill bit, collection of drill bits for making all these different holes, and then you kind of route the edges so that these hinges sit in there just perfectly. This was the biggest pain because I did this 6 times. And, then you test it with the hinge. Is it sitting flush? Did I drill too much? And then the scariest part was I literally did all of this, and then I built the whole bookshelf. And then I tested it for the first time, and it worked fine. I would have been incredibly pissed if somehow I just messed up a measurement or something. That was probably the largest risk in this whole thing, was the fear of, will it mount correctly? But yeah, I kind of got in the groove here. You'll see I needed different size bits for all these holes, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing this 3 times. Let's keep the same bit on, and let's keep moving. And special guest here is my mom. First time I think I saw her since November 2019, and then she came up kind of like a year into COVID, I think. Yeah. So first time I saw her in a long time, and I had plenty of projects where I could always use an assistant. So yeah, I got all the hinges mounted. Hey, what's up, Gina? Laying on that new couch you found. Yeah, I used a little corner. What are those things called? Man, I forgot all the terminology. I'm doing this 5 months after renovation, and I forgot what all these tools are called. But yeah, the tool that gives you a perfect 90 when you are drilling stuff together. So yeah, you know what a door looks like. It's got 4 sides, and a bookshelf door just has a bunch of little shelves down the middle. I think the only thing I would have done differently, which you'll see I'm putting the shelves on now, is I wish I added the little lip to the shelf that'll like prevent things from falling off. I wish I put that on the shelf and then put the shelf on the sides, or like screwed them into place, because what happened here is my measurements were off a little bit. So my lips weren't quite flush with the edge of the bookshelf, if that makes sense. So this little thing that I'm bringing down the line, sometimes it was a little far in, like 1/8 of an inch, or sticking out 1/8 of an inch. So if you're doing a built-in bookshelf and you want it to look just like mine, then put the lips of your shelves on first and then screw the shelves into place where you want them. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Hidden hinges, a lot of nice wood that I bought for this. Didn't want to cheap out on the wood. It's super heavy. I think is it 3/4 inch? I think it's 3/4 inch wood all around. And where the hinges were, I think you needed it to be like 1.5 inches thick or something. So I had to put 2 of the 3/4 inches back to back, and then also I think a 1/2 inch piece in the middle. So I had enough depth to screw the hinge into, if that makes sense. But otherwise, pretty smooth sailing. I think for the back of the shelf, I did a 1/4 inch plywood. And yeah, maybe you can recommend some different ways to do this. I didn't hide any of the screws or anything because it wasn't a door that was going to be opened often, or I didn't care like what it looked like on the inside, if that makes sense. Because only one side's exposed. So here I am before paint, potentially caulking it up. Gives you nice clean paint lines. And I did all this because I'm about to screw the back on, or maybe I nailed the back on and wanted to do all the caulking beforehand. So yeah, I think this is 1/4 inch plywood. Needed 3 pieces because this is probably a 6.5 foot tall bookshelf. Yeah, probably 6.5 feet. You'll see the hinges on the sides there. And then, yeah, it looks like I just used the brad nailer to staple them all into place. And then here we go. Caulking. I only caulked one side. Okay. So I went back through and caulked before I painted. And then this is what I ended up doing to fix the little weird gaps around the lip edges. Just to smooth it out a little more, I put a bunch of drywall mud. I think just one coat all the way around. Kind of make it seem flush. And then I think it was just sanding, priming, and painting. Mount it. And then I put some baseboard trim on it. I put the door trim, the custom door trim that we did around it. And yeah, I think it looks pretty dang cool. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we used a nice door and trim paint. There's my dog walking around. And a high class triple crossing IPA. It looks like Gina's drinking there. Very delicious. Very delicious. So yeah, look at that baby. I added the door trim. The door trim does not swivel with the door. So put the door trim on, and then I attached the baseboard trim to sort of that bottom lip there. Which yeah, I think turned out really well. Blended really nicely with the trim that's already there. And yeah, dang, this was a super cool project. A lot of fun. I don't know why. It's just a bookshelf. It's a rectangular bookshelf with some lips, and it swings. But yeah, it was really cool. I think you'll see us doing a little bit of caulking and then painting on the trim. And yeah, this was the last project I did for this entire renovation, I think. Like the last big thing that I did. So that was a little bit of a nice way to end the 9 months. I think this is a week before we started renting it out. But dang, that looks cool. That's cool. All right, all right. I met the bartender. All right, our cool red oak bar installation with a live edge. Dang, this thing was sexy. I think I'm just throwing up the brackets for it, and then Gina's gonna take over here in a second and talk about the design of it.
And then next to the ping pong table, we really wanted to have like a bar, a high top bar, so people could have a place to sit and put their drinks, but still feel included in the ping pong area space. So we had a nice friend who was moving at the time offer us this beautiful like real wood, live edge wood bar top.
He's an arborist, and I guess he's had it for years, just sitting in various closets in different spaces. And he said, "Do you guys want this?" And we're like, "Yeah, this is perfect."
It's beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I would have wanted for this space, but to purchase one was going to be very expensive. So I'm so glad that we stumbled upon that.
Nice to have
So
good friends.
yeah, great friends, because he helped us paint the space too. And just, yeah, good friend all around. Designing the rec room. So when designing the rec room, we kind of had this laid out previously. So, we knew we wanted this to be an open space, but a little bit separate. So we kind of went with these double sliding pocket doors that have a frosted glass, so you could still let the natural light in from the double windows in the main room. Since there's only a small window here that gets a lot of shade. Otherwise, we wanted this to be a space where we could have friends who come over, have game nights, parties, drinks, just a multi-use space. And I had experimented a lot with where everything was going to go, because it's a nice big open space, but this main area is like kind of like a walkway. So do you use it? What do you use it for? How much furniture do you put in it? So we had originally talked about putting a regulation size ping pong table long ways, but ended up deciding that was probably not the best use of space. So we went with this what is it, like a 6x3 mini ping pong table. And that is actually the only thing I think I purchased in here from...
That was new.
That was brand new. The bar stools are Habitat for Humanity find. They were originally just a wood color, and I went ahead and spray painted them black just so, the different wood colors didn't clash with each other from the live edge. I really wanted a super fun element down here, so I purchased these really cool like disco ball planters, because I really wanted some live plants in a basement area. I think it really, A, it freshens the air, but B, just, doesn't make it feel as dingy. So we have some cool disco ball planters up in the corner. We have a ZZ plant in the corner. On a plant stand that I had repurposed from our previous Airbnb down here. But then this walkway area, I was kind of torn on whether we should have some seating down here or if it should just be open walkway. Ended up going with a small, like, cute little couch that I found on Facebook Marketplace. It's actually super comfy, and it's only $100, and so you can't go wrong.
What was your goal with this wall, Gina? You just wanted like a little photo?
I wanted like a little gallery wall, something to bring interest to the space. So I just kind of, I went and through our house and was like, what do we have that I could use down here and I don't need to purchase? And then went to Habitat, and they have all kinds of weird old frames and artwork.
It came together really well.
I don't know what this is, but I love the color of it.
Yeah.
Do you like this space?
He said yes. He said, "Why don't you guys play with me?" right. Another demolition day. This was probably weeks or maybe a month after the walls were framed. Yeah, this was a bit spontaneous. We were like, well, we're replacing the whole basement with drywall ceiling. So should we leave these cardboard planks up? Nah, we should redo everything. And that's what we did. Took out the whole ceiling here. Replace it with drywall. There's my dog. Had an electrician friend come by today and gave me some advice after I took this stuff off. So I'll show you some of the things I need to do before this wire running to my oven, plus these 3 wires running to who knows where. We're all going through the same joist notch, and he suggested moving this one and create a new notch away from it, because this is like a heat point. So the rest of the places, they're pretty separate. It was really just they linked up under this one, so we need to change that. Another thing I need to do before I put up the drywall is remove this junction box, which is running to my washer all the way down there. Hey Gina.
Okay.
Because you can't have a junction box that's not accessible. So if I drywalled this, then it'd be weird to have a little panel here. So I'm just gonna remove it and run a new wire from the panel to the washer. So nothing crazy, and then I'll re-insulate everything and start hanging the drywall, because we have guests staying in this Airbnb in like 7 days. Yeah, that was crazy that we thought we could rent this out while renovating. We ended up shutting down this Airbnb shortly after. So we installed recessed lighting throughout the entire basement. So here I am removing the light that was there. Just a simple little mount on the joist. And then I'll install this big recessed light, which they're pretty simple to go up. You just put it where you want it, tack these little nails in that it comes with, and then continue to run that electrical wire that was there into this new light. We had 2 lights down here in the main room originally, and we added a 3rd light, which I think was helpful. I might have even added more in hindsight. I had 4 lights in the new rec room, which was nice, and I probably should have done like 4 out here because it's a pretty long space. It's about 27 feet. But hindsight's 2020, as was this year was 2020, the pandemic year. Yeah, so this was my COVID project. Maybe I've talked about that elsewhere, but it was pretty cool to come out of the pandemic, one, not dead, not having COVID, not feeling like I gave it to someone else, I hope. But 2, yeah, it was really cool to do this project throughout. So you'll see I have, well, you can see 2 of the 3 recessed lights in place now. All the electrical's good. I ended up having to rerun the kitchenette electrical because I thought I could just run everything off of the bathroom electrical that was already over there, but the electrician said no. If you're going to have a fridge and a microwave, you want to have those on their own circuits, their own breakers. So I did just that. If only I could go back and tell this Eric, don't put up drywall. You have to finish running electrical wires all the way across your entire basement, and it's going to be a pain in the butt. But that's what I did. Put up drywall, and then I ripped it down, ran the electrical, but we'll get there. The insulation is R30 insulation. You'll see in the demo pics, it was only, I don't know, it was covering like half of the basement, maybe. This really helped with soundproofing. It helped with heating and cooling the basement. Insulation everywhere and anywhere in your house is, I think, pretty great. I take out the gas heater at some point, which is the only heat source for the basement, and it stayed pretty mild the entire winter because I had the pipes running through that were exposed with hot water and all the insulation and 2 layers of ceiling drywall. So, yeah, it was nice and toasty. It feels like every time I say the last part was the last bit of demolition, I have a whole new demolition project ahead of me. So you'll see here, this might actually be the final demolition project. I'm building out the kitchenette, which will be on the left side of that former closet, and the right side, I will just finish the washer and dryer area. So it'll look a lot cleaner and nicer. First, I had to shrink that wall in the middle. Previously, that little wall I took out was holding up a gas heater. So I had the plumber cap that gas line when they were over, and I took the gas heater off and shrunk the wall down a little bit, and it'll just have one light switch on that wall for the kitchenette light. Framing out this whole space, first I had to remove the laundry drain pipe, which I'm working on now, so I could put new walls in place. And then I had the plumber come out after I studded everything out to install water lines to the future kitchenette sink, the drain pipe for the washer, and the drain pipe for the sink and the kitchenette. The kitchenette will be open as well. 1 recessed light, 3 walls, butcher block countertops, cabinets, a mini fridge, and a small sink. First thing I had to do before the electrical was build some walls. My plumber was a little annoyed with me that I didn't make them 16 inches on center, so make sure you do that. I think my logic was I was trying to make sure they had enough room to hook into that drain pipe that was there, so I tried to create a little more space but still wanted enough studs to screw drywall into. But in hindsight, they were annoyed that I did that. So now I'm building the bulkhead and running some electrical wire. The bulkhead was going to be just below that drain pipe there, which is from the toilet upstairs, and will hold 1 recessed light and 2 layers of drywall with the green glue acoustic soundproofing in between. You'll see at the bottom of the frame, they replaced a good bit of that heavy old steel pipe as well, the cast iron pipe. Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful kitchen. All right, and now we're going to stud out the laundry room. I think the first thing I had to do was take the electrical off of the cinder block walls. They were all mounted to the walls because there were no studded walls. So I think I popped those off, built a bunch of walls, and then screwed them back into the studs and called it a day. Yeah, there wasn't too much in here. I had to rerun this electrical wire, which I think I touched on before, to the laundry machine because there was a couple split boxes in the ceiling that I had to take out. Yeah, so you know all about framing now. 16 inches on center. Doesn't look like that was the case here, but it worked. Got my super old armored cable wires running into that outlet which I don't think we really use for anything, but yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything interesting about this room that's worth talking about. It was really hard to work around all the existing water pipes, as you can see. I built these custom like drywall cutout doors, so you can access the water filter and the main on-off knobs for the water. Obviously, you need to have access to that, people, so don't drywall over that. There you go, remounting the electrical to the stud, and yeah. All right, so probably my least favorite part of the renovation was hanging drywall. It's about as awful as it sounds. It's heavy, it's tedious, it's a little backbreaking. So yeah, let's get into it here. You'll see I'm using a drywall panel lifter, which I got from Harbor Freight, which was a great investment, like $150. So kudos to them with their panel lifter. Their drywall cutout tool, on the other hand, was very, very awful. I ended up pre-cutting a lot of stuff with perfect measurements, ideally getting the perfect measurement because it was really terrible. Maybe the better ones are a lot better, but don't cheap out on a drywall cutout tool, I guess. But the panel lifter's great because those panels are, I don't know, 80 pounds, 70 pounds. It's 5/8 inch thick drywall, which is the thickest drywall you can get. We really wanted to make sure this space was as soundproof as possible for the upstairs. So we actually hung 2 layers of 5/8 inch thick drywall with a layer of green glue in between, and you'll see that in a minute or so here, us applying the green glue. So it's definitely a more expensive route, but I think it really paid off. Clearly, it's a lot more soundproof than it was or could be with just one layer of drywall. So yeah, you want to be super careful when you're screwing in screws to the drywall. I moved all the electrical wires and stuff out of the way before, but there were still some spots where the electrical wires were running under the joists. So I actually made a lot of notes as I was hanging each panel as to where those spots were, just so I was super careful not to screw through a metal plate or accidentally pierce a wire underneath. I'm sure there's more professional techniques or way to do that, or the electrical is just perfect underneath and you never have to worry about it, but I knew mine was not. So yeah, I think you put 4 or 5 screws, it might be 5 screws in on each joist line that the panel's hugging against. So it's a good amount of screws. For the first screw length, I was using 1 5/8 thick, so it was piercing the joist for 1 inch. And then on these second layers here, I was using 2-inch drywall screws to make sure it hit the joist still. You'll see here's where I'm applying that green glue compound. You kind of just throw it on and squirt it all over the place. That's how they instruct you to do it. And then you saw really quickly I used the cutout tool, which makes a huge mess. Maybe some of the other ones don't. So yeah, definitely recruit friends if you can. You'll see Vinny a good amount throughout this renovation. He was also a little bored in quarantine, so came over a lot to help cut and hoist up some drywall, which is it's a good friend to have. And I think he had a lot of fun with the green glue too, maybe a little too much fun. But yeah, pretty simple overall, just backbreaking, pain, tedious, and yeah, glad this is over. One mistake I didn't mention was definitely don't hang the ceiling drywall after the walls. The walls kind of add a little bit of support. So do the ceiling first and then put the walls up, butt it right against up to the corners. I didn't really have huge problems with this, but that's just what everybody seemed to message me after I did this, was I did it incorrectly. So ceiling first, people. Hanging more drywall. That was my life. Yeah, I don't know if I have any other tips and tricks for drywalling. We got 1/2-inch walls here being cut. I pre-cut all my outlets because I didn't like that drywall cutout tool I had. And this is starting to be pretty repetitive. Oh, I started using a laser tool. The laser. Yeah, that was super helpful because making sure the screws were hitting the stud made it a lot easier. You'll see that I took one panel down and put one back up because I think that wall was super crooked. So that's why I didn't edit it out of the video. Mistakes happen. And especially when you're not an expert, you can expect to do things twice sometimes, if not 3 times. So yeah, what I did was I furred out the studs a little bit on the left. I added like a, I don't know, 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch little pieces of plywood so that it wasn't as, the wall was straighter. Yeah, and I think the level tool helped with just making sure I was hitting the studs every time. So it's a fun little tip that I saw someone use. Never miss the stud with the screw, especially if you have weird electrical issues where that can be risky. But yeah, cutting drywall, it's easy, baby. Get a box cutter, score the back of it, kick it out with your knee. Or if you have bad knees, you can kind of break them with your arms too. It's a nice clean cut. Yeah, what am I doing here? Oh, I had a fun time getting my light switch for the kitchenette light in that little tiny spot. Had a hard time nailing the outlet box in between those studs. And yeah, now I'm doing the laundry room, and look at all those holes I pre-cut pretty well, I'd say. I think the biggest thing, or the worst part of my renovation, was probably where I mounted the electrical outlet boxes. I don't know what was up, but my measurements were off, or all my walls were crooked, because basically every outlet, I feel like, was inset into the wall too far, if that makes sense. So when you put the plate cover on, it was sitting in the wall, which is pretty bad. So I bought all these outlet box extenders, which kind of just go around. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It makes it longer so it actually sits flush on the wall. You'll see I probably have that installed now on that one outlet you can see there. Another thing I was really stingy about, stingy the word? You'll see I'm using a corded drill, and I forgot how long I went without buying cordless drills or saws. And it's a million times easier when you're not dealing with a cord. Yeah, worth the money. I think I just got to a point where I realized how stupid I've been and how much time I've wasted dragging around an electrical cord. Cause yeah, it was stupid. It was a pain. This is like a $10 saw, but I got a nice battery powered one. Yeah, get a corded drill. I just can't believe I'm watching myself do this, dragging around that extension cord. That's stupid. Hilarious. What's going on now? What's going on? Yeah, this is fun stuff, people. Drywalling is so fun. Yeah, there's only 4 things really to know about it. So, how much more can I say? But I will keep saying. This video is brought to you by a little cameo from one of my groomsmen, Sir Nicholas. I think he helped me hold up some of these panels, which works better than the 2x4 thing. You're seeing I'm screwing into my steel studs, which I had a hard time penetrating them for some reason. It might have been because I was using this slightly weaker corded drill, but once I pushed hard enough, they actually caught the stud. And look at all this. Oh my gosh. So much more drywall to do. I think this is the last bit of drywalling in the main space. And you know what we did for this. We put 2 layers up. We put the green glue in between. And that is soundproof, baby. Throw the slime on it. There we go. Slap it on. Screw it in. It also worked as a super great adhesive. That wall is not coming down. That ceiling is not coming down. But wait, there's more. Laundry room ceiling. Drywalling my life away. Looks like it's like 11 o'clock here. Gosh. I can't believe how many evenings I lost after work doing this stuff. It's a super fun thing to get really, doing some physical labor after a day job there's nothing better. Looks like I got a little tool belt now too. Look at it, I'm getting all these fancy tools as we move on. All the accessories. Because now I'm doing my least favorite thing. Mudding, drywall, taping, drywall. Alright, now I feel like I'm just annoying the viewers. I should go back into my monotone voice. Yeah, mudding and taping here, guys. You know the drill. Throw the mud on, throw the tape on, wipe it off. Keep the tape wet. That's the biggest tip. Avoid air bubbles by keeping the tape wet so it dries. It dries nicely. So you don't have that paper seeping through. You got to throw it on there. So what are we doing here? We're doing a big old corner. That's a big piece of tape. Yeah, those were always weird to run, but not too bad. Kind of got the hang of it. And then I really just wanted to get this over with, so I am cruising. I think I did this in a weekend, which was great. Because it's terrible. Doing a second or third coat, it looks like. Probably second coat. I think I started to get a little lazy unless it really needed feathering. I don't remember how much mud I used. I feel like it was 3 or 4 of those buckets. It couldn't have been more than 4, though. That sounds like a lot of drywall mud. You want to use as little as possible. That's the trick. As little mud as you need to feather out all those seams. Yeah. I say we put some music on. It'd be a little more cathartic. All right, here's the fun accent wall that Gina did. Let's cut to Gina to talk about it a little bit.
I wanted to do one accent wall, and I kind of went, and I'm staring at it right now because it's just so beautiful. But I kind of, I was going back and forth between a million different colors. First, I wanted to do a black wall to make the space feel a little bit wider. Experimented in my head with a blue wall, but then when I was looking at the Lime Wash website, I just found this beautiful like mauve gray tone, and it honestly matches the design of the floor, and it just really works well with the rest of the space. I'm really happy with that color.
So yeah, the lime wash was pretty cool. You mixed the paint with water. I think it was like a 1-to-1 ratio. So yeah, a gallon of paint covered more than enough for this one wall. You'll see we did the wrong technique a few times here. You saw I kind of outlined the windows and stuff with the brush, but that's not really how you want to go about it. You want to consistently move down the wall. You want to have a spray bottle with water to kind of blend it in. And yeah, you're using 4-inch block brushes. We weren't as concerned about it for the white walls because you didn't really see the texture as much as we thought. I mean, it's definitely there, but for a darker, mauve colored wall, you can see the nice sort of texture that it brings by doing this like crosshair pattern. So we did do that for this, but again, a little less concerned about, blending all the edges because it looked pretty similar. So here we are going back through the mauve wall, and you'll see we started moving a little more consistently after watching the videos on how to apply this. And I think we end up doing a third coat. I think you only need 2 coats, but it's kind of cool to see how it dries. So yeah, I think down the line, like the very last thing we did is I think we threw up a third coat of this mauve wall. You see I don't even have the trim replaced yet or the floors in. We're going back in time a little bit here. But yeah, this mauve wall looks really cool. You'll see me doing this crosshair pattern throughout with the 4-inch block brush, which I think we had 2 of. And then, sure, I left the time lapse in here of the wall drying, so you can kind of see the texture come through a little bit. It's nice. So I believe what we're doing here is adding an acrylic sealer. So total layers on the kitchen walls and the bathroom walls to protect it for cleaning was the primer label layer, the primer for the lime wash paint, 2 coats of lime wash paint, and then the acrylic seal on those. And here we repainted all the pipes too. All right, so quickly, probably a little repetitive. Here are the 12 by 24 tiles with a 1/3 offset that I'm just nailing into place as we go. Not nailing, hammering into place, sort of like a lock mechanism between the tiles, or the vinyl tiles, I'll call them. I used either a circular saw or a chop saw to cut them to length. You're going to ruin your blades, so just prepare for that. You're going to have specific blades just for vinyl now because it's going to dull the heck out of them. Yeah, I think those are the only tools I recommend. There's a nice like sand hammer. You want to use a dummy piece of vinyl when you're hitting, so you're not hitting like the real piece of vinyl with the hammer. And momentarily, I think we slow things down to just kind of get a docu-style discussion on how this is all kind of coming together. So I'll let a younger version of myself take over. Close enough. So they say, Vinny, you want to work out of 5 different boxes. just so the pattern and the color is different. So it varies.
I wish this had a real focus.
I don't remember. He's ready to do another one. He said he'll come back when it's warm. You know in LA it's warm a lot?
What?
You know in LA it's warm a lot?
Is this a bit? Are you doing a...
Not everything's a bit in life, Vinny.
It's a stupid
Something I had to learn.
Stupid comment.
Let's just tap them in now. Before it's easier to do this last.
What?
Yeah, it's just fun times here. You kind of flex it into the side vinyl piece and then nail it into the bottom piece. I don't know if that makes sense. It's pretty simple though, people. I used roofing shingles, big thing, to level the floors as I went. Put the roofing shingles underneath them. Oh, I'm not sitting on the right one, Vinny.
You hit my knee.
Thanks, Vinny, for documenting this so elegantly. You'll see against the shower ledge there, I left a little bit of a gap because I'll put just a corner bead in and I'll glue that to the tile to kind of hide that gap between the floor and the tile. So that worked out just fine. Just fine. Oh, I put spacers all around the room. Don't forget to put your spacers. Basically, that's going to act as a guide so that it's not butting against the floor walls. You want to have a little bit of room for the floor to flex and contract and expand and all that stuff. Yeah, fun times. I was making sure to clean and vacuum all the dust and dirt and drywall chunks that I dropped on the floor as I was drywalling or mudding. Super important there. And then, yeah, the roofing shingle thing worked out really well. Contractor friend recommended that. There's a couple pieces that is not great. There was like a really bad slope around the drain. It's not going to be perfect, people, though. That's kind of the struggle of a very uneven basement floor. This spot particularly, like by the far wall to like where my hands are now, it's dropping like 3 inches. So yeah, it made it a little difficult around the drain to get it all feeling level, but it all worked out. All right, so making a door frame for a double door. These are the doors that we'll install for the laundry room. Gina found the doors from the Habitat store for $10, so that was a steal. The wood for the door frame probably cost me more than that. It's a pretty straightforward thing. It's 3 pieces of wood. Screw the tops into each other. I painted everything first, which made things a little bit easier. And then those are the door stoppers that I used because we had to make a couple door frames. So yeah, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind when you're mounting the jamb is for it to be super level. So level on the sides, level to the ground, and that will just make it easier when you're putting your hinges on to ensure the doors close levelly. Did a couple techniques for putting the door stopper on. You'll see me screwing from the back into it here to try and hide the holes. And then, yeah, there's a shoestring technique. So you go corner to corner on both sides, and you'll see me do that in a second here. First, I'm just making the top super level which it already was because the stud underneath it was super level. And then I did have to put some shims on the side here so that it was level as well. And then you test it with the shoestring technique. So you go from top left to bottom right with one piece of yarn or shoestring, whatever. And then you go from bottom left to top right. And then they should just be touching in the middle, I think. Like barely, I think. Kind of shows it's level in all directions. So yeah, this was pretty simple. Putting up a door jamb. And the doors are coming next. You'll see them unpainted to the left. And we threw door and trim paint on all of that as well. This nice white enamel paint. There's a couple shims there I'm putting in to make sure the doors are going to sit nicely. And now we're putting together the bulkhead doors. So these were a little longer than we needed, so I had to cut them. These are hollow doors, so hollow doors have a solid wood frame, if you can imagine, around the edges, like 4 inches in for the handles and stuff. And then it's just like a piece of like 1/4-inch plywood on the front and the back that's glued on. So that's why it's hollow in the middle. Saves a lot of wood, and I get why they do it. Feels a little cheaper. But yeah, I mean, these doors were $10, so that was amazing. Now I'm doing some chiseling for the hinges, and this was super tedious, but kind of a cool skill technique. You got to get down. Takes a little bit of practice to get the right depth because the hinge is obviously sitting in the door frame and on the door itself. So you got to get that just right. And then you need a really good sharp chisel to chisel the wood out. A lot easier when you have solid wood too. This wood was kind of cheap. I don't remember what it was, just like a box store wood, but it felt, I don't know, it was just cheap to work with. So here what I'm doing is I'm making the mark for the hinge, drawing an outline of it, and then I'll cut out the depth basically so that it sits flush against the door frame. Pretty simple though. Definitely just don't cut more than you need. Keep testing it and cut a little more, test it, cut a little more, because that's what's really gonna make the doors close better. You don't have to there's like a cardboard trick where you have to end up putting cardboard in between the hinge and the wood because you either went too far in or yeah. And then one trick I learned too is get the top hinge on. I only needed 2 hinges for these doors because they're super light. So I have the top hinge on, and then I'd make the mark for the bottom hinge, like where it needs to sit on the door, because it could be off a hair. It's not going to be perfectly level. The door might not be perfectly square and level. So yeah, you'll see here, I did a couple times. You never go towards you. Always go away from you with the chisel. That thing is crazy sharp. And rewatching that, I'm glad I did not lose my private parts because I was sitting on the door and pulling it towards me. And there it is.
Perfect. Ah.
Can you see it? Wow. You'll see the doorknobs are off a hair. I did take that one back off and move it up a little bit so that they're symmetrical. All right, I think we crushed the door trim as well. Made it custom, matched our upstairs trim. This is really nice 3/4-inch wood, 3/4-inch wood. And what I did was this is a baseboard, I think 1x8s, so not 3/4 inch to like 7/8 inch thick or something. So they're 8 inches by like 12 feet or something. And what I did was I basically cut a blade's length off of it. I'm using one of the baseboards as a guide there. And so that made it a little bit thinner. And then what I did was I turned that little piece that I cut off over on its side, rounded the edges, and then tapped it into the doors with some brad nailers. So it'll all kind of make sense after. But here's Gina rounding out the larger piece. Just the outside edge of that gets rounded. And these are all pre-primed. This is from a nice distributor too. Get the wood for your trim from a distributor. I got my baseboards and door trim from people that specialize in that. The wood's much higher quality, and this is gonna last, 100 years, I hope. So here we go. Here I'm adding a little bit of this is just door trim extensions, because my pocket doors were, I guess, a little smaller or something was off with it. So I had to make that a little thicker, so when the doors were open all the way, there wasn't a gap on the outsides. But yeah, I thought the door trim turned out really well. I couldn't really figure out how my upstairs one was made. I feel like it was like some version of what I ended up doing. But yeah, you'll see here I'm attaching that little tiny piece to the outside, and I'll get some close-ups in here too so you can really see the details of what we rounded and how it all came together. But it was pretty simple. Obviously make sure they're level so it doesn't look weird. And then you got to just get a nice chop saw that has 45-degree angle cuts. I think all of my cuts weren't anything super complicated. But you do got to kind of tweak that out so that it sits nice and flush at the corners. This was another favorite project. It might have been my second favorite. This is the custom window trim. So I took out the jamb in there, it ripped off all those crappy MDF boards, and we made something with a really nice sill, which again matched our upstairs aesthetic. That's what we were going for. So I basically just replicated it. I came upstairs, looked at how it came together, and just did that. So I'm redoing the jamb right now. Taking off all the old nails. Some of them were a little wet. Yeah, so the demo part, it was kind of cool to see how the window actually is like mounted as well. But yeah, I replaced all this crappy MDF board. I don't know, it's so cheap, and it looks bad too. It's not like super smooth. And I used all real wood in here. So here I'm putting the jamb into place, and then I used the stair tread actually for the sill. So that's a stair tread that's cut, to length. It sits on the bottom, and a cool thing we did was we took the second piece of the baseboard trim, which you'll see in a minute. It's a 2-piece baseboard, and there's a nice profile that I used for not this part here. This is just a little ledge that I was replicating from my upstairs ones. Actually, I think I just improvised this. I was like, how am I going to hide this gap? And then you'll see here, this is the second piece of the baseboard trim. So I would tap this into the super long 1x16s baseboards to give that nice profile look. And then I was like, hey, I have a little gap I need to fill around these windows. This is probably the perfect thing to do. So I lined a window with that, which kind of plays into the floor aesthetic, and yeah, you just need your brad nailer. Nothing crazy. So I put the jamb in, put these little trim pieces up, the stair tread, and then I put up the same trim I used for the doors around the windows, sitting on top of that tread, and then I add that little accent piece to the bottom, which you'll see in a second. But yeah, this all really comes together. Like, make sure your gaps aren't crazy huge because you're going to caulk the heck out of this to really blend it all nicely. So yeah, this is the same door trim that I used. Just a nice big, thick profile. It looks really nice. And of course, do your two sides first, and then your top piece you kind of gotta fiddle around with to get it just right. But these are just tapped in with, I think, 2-inch brad nailers. Stuck 3 or 4 in on each side. It's not going anywhere. You can grab it. Then put your top piece in. Get it all lined up as level as you can. Oh, you can kind of shim the back a little bit too to fur it out to, kind of make it super flush. And then here's the caulking. This really makes it come together nicely. It looks really good. I just used regular white window caulk for indoors, and yeah, it cuts all the seams out. You want to do it on all of where your seams are between your wood pieces. So here I'm running it down the outside trim piece with the inside trim piece. You got to cover all your gaps because you're going to paint over all of this as well, including the caulk. So pretty simple throw on. Get a wet finger, rub it along to smooth it out. And here's the bottom piece where the laser comes in. And that's not milk. Ugh. That's my caulk cup. So I was dipping my finger in there to get it wet for the smoothing out the caulk. So yeah, use a laser. Made it match up nicely. I rounded all 3 edges on that one piece. And there's your window, baby. And it was so nice, we did it twice. Only quick differences here is the time lapse is kind of weird. I must have had a weird ratio going for time. Yeah, the only difference here is I have my left stair tread there. You see I had to cut it pretty short, and I had to make the trim a little different. But other than that, same trim, different window. Let's play some tunes. All right, here's that beautiful 2-piece baseboard trim I've been excited to talk about. I think these are 8 inches wide. Are they 16 feet long? I think they're 16 feet long. Yeah, 2-piece trim, that's how you go next level, people. the previous renovators did not go with two-piece trim. They went with that crappy stuff you get at the box stores, like MDF, one piece. Ugh, not real wood. This is going to last forever. I mean, this is great. It's pre-primed. And you'll see my little technique here is throwing, I think, a 1-inch brad nail, maybe a 1.25-inch brad nail from the smaller piece into the larger piece. And I'm just pushing down on the floor as I go down so that it's level. And I would just check the back after to make sure it was super level. And that was my technique. But yeah, find a flat surface and just tap your smaller piece into the larger piece so it looks nice. Baseboard trim, super fun. Make all your cuts first before you tack anything into the wall. Obviously you want to have your two pieces together beforehand. And yeah, this is just all about different 90-degree and 45-degree angles coming together. So I would work on a corner at a time, make my measurements, and then do like the outside edge, inside edge, like mark all that stuff. I was starting to get pretty lazy, I'm not going to lie, with filming towards the end of this renovation because I was really over it. So I think this might be the last little section you see in this room, which I did slow motion just so you could kind of see how it works. I might have to tap a couple new brad nails into it because based on where you cut it, that smaller piece might be coming out. You don't want it to be super tight in there, so that again can expand and contract if it needs to. But you'll caulk in between anyways, so I don't know how much that matters, but it's a little more flexible to caulk. So yeah, you'll see here, like when I'm working on a corner, I made an outside edge and an inside edge, and I throw a little wood glue on it, hold them together at a nice 90, tap it in with the 1-inch or 1.25-inch brad nails, and then put it in place and kind of like, that way the baseboard trim is level with itself, if that makes sense. So if you put one piece in and then work on another one, it's going to be hard to slide that in there, and two, it's not going to look as good. So build the trim out, throw it on, tap it into place, put the 2-inch brad nails into the wall or into the studs if you can. And then you'll do the corner bead, and then you'll caulk. I said corner bead, but I meant shoe molding or quarter round. That's what that piece is that I'm working on there. Again, similar sort of thing. You're cutting 45s. You want to be careful using the chop saw with these. I had a lot of kickback. Maybe just because they're such small pieces, I needed a higher saw depth or something, something a little finer. But I had a lot of kickback with these things. Thankfully, they're like little tiny pieces, but they would fly around a lot. So make sure your goggles are on. Make sure you're being smart. So yeah, I would tack the quarter round or shoe molding into the baseboard, and that's fine. You don't need a ton of nails. And then here is the caulking, the second to last step before painting. And I had a huge gap here because that drywall is just weird by the door. So I'm laying it on pretty thick, but I think you want to try and get the caulk to be as minimal as possible, and then also caulk the corners. And then I did also caulk from the shoe molding to the baseboard. So it'll just look really nice when you throw a coat of paint on there. I think we had to do 2 coats of paint, but it was worth it. It looks great. Be diligent about your cuts, though. You don't want to waste wood. Do your longer pieces first. I think that's the trick, so that you waste as little wood as possible, because if you mess up a long one, you can use that on a short one. That's a good tip. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It's pretty straightforward. There's a nice 2-hour video from our boy Jeff at Home Renovations, my Canadian contractor hero, where Yeah, I watched all 2 hours, and I don't know what was in the 2 hours. I mean, every little detail you need. But yeah, you'll want to watch it to understand how to do the cuts and everything. And then here we're using that nice high-end enamel paint, and we put 2 coats all over this. And then we're using the green tape here, the frog tape. That's the next level tape, is what they tell you. Here's a nice overexposed beauty shot of it. Yeah. All right, the beautiful little kitchenette. This was fun. I had these cabinets built from a place in town. We did it all custom because it was a small space. I'll talk about those with Gina in a second here. But yeah, the big thing is you got to make sure those cabinets are level. So you'll see me shimming up the bottoms, messing with the back, and then you basically just screw them into the wall and then into each other. So yeah, pretty straightforward. I don't remember struggling too much with this. I think we did this in a weekend. Like the whole project of getting them on and mounted. So yeah, here you see me screwing them into each other. Now I'm thinking, am I going crazy, or I don't know if I tacked them into the back wall. I must have. But yeah, use a laser level to make sure that they are level. And then there's a little gap between this one and the fridge, which I think you'll see a shot of in a second. That last piece of me working on the wall, the camera must have moved on me here. But yeah, we did a little bit of improvisation, but it all worked out fine. It's all level all the way across, so the butcher block's going to sit on there really nice.
Kitchenette.
Kitchenette, that was fun.
Yeah.
We do have new stuff in there, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. We had looked at the Habitat for repurposing cabinets, and they didn't really have anything for that tiny space.
Yeah, we needed like customization a lot, so we built them out through this company in town, and we got all reused, or it doesn't have the chemical varnish that a lot of cabinets have. And I think there was like a couple other eco factors.
I think it's recycled wood.
Recycled wood. So those white cabinets are all new from that store. And then we found the butcher block.
Did 2 coats of stain, and then did 3 coats of poly to make sure everything was sealed.
Yeah, so the butcher block turned out really nice. It was sitting super level thanks to those cabinets underneath. And then I had a great time doing an undermount sink that was rounded all the way around. I recommend making sure you have the right cutout template. They make like wooden cutout templates for, using a router to get a really clean cut, because it's going to be exposed, right? And it's hard to do a consistently round thing cutout, as you'll see in this video. I started using the jigsaw, but the trickiest part is going to be the next thing, where I'm trying to get it rounded and perfect so the sink sits flush and nicely underneath it. And what I actually ended up doing was, I don't show it, but a cabinet friend down the street, who happens to be a neighbor, saw me working on this and was like, hey, I can get a guy to fabricate a template for you to use your router. So that's what I ended up doing. I mount the template to the bottom, and then I would route and kind of have that as a guide, so it was perfect. It still wasn't 100% perfect because I kind of messed up before I used the template. Oh man, I'm using my nice jeans here while I'm doing this. Risky. Yeah, then the sink just undermounts pretty simply. Throw a couple screws in with the brackets. And we already sealed everything beforehand. Definitely seal it. Put your poly on. Put your poly on the bottom too. That was a tip from a cabinet friend, because it'll start to bend over time, but the poly will kind of keep it good on both sides, if that makes sense. And here, just putting up a couple brackets for the shelf. Yeah, this is where the microwave's going to sit, and all the nice dishes that Gina's going to talk about where she got those from. Super nice. Yeah, pretty straightforward though, putting up a shelf.
We wanted to do one shelf above the kind of like bar top area. And so we could put the microwave on there and like other dishware and stuff so that, you know, there's some free space for prep work. And I think it turned out really nice. I stained it and sealed it with the same stain as the butcher block, and Eric threw it up.
Throw it up, throw it up. Hopefully it doesn't come down. Yeah, I think the only thing I was conscious of here was the microwave depth, right? I had to make sure that the shelf was wide enough for the microwave to sit properly on the shelf, which it did because I measured beforehand. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. I had all the outlets and everything wired previously. I knew where I wanted to put stuff, so that all kind of worked out nicely with the electrical. And then screw it in the bottom brackets and into the wall. But all the glassware and stuff.
Thrift stores, I love them. I really wanted like a very ornate like wine glasses and little cocktail glasses. So I went to this thrift store called Circa, and they had exactly what I wanted. And
also like $1 sometimes.
Yeah, it's like nice china.
You have to hand wash it,
yeah.
But it's awesome.
I got some nice wine glasses, like a nice coupe, 4 set of coupe glasses, and then some water glasses, and then some bowls and plates. Yeah.
You made everything look good, Gina.
I make everything look good. Just kidding. But yeah, the kitchenette turned out really well.
It's cute.
Talking about the main room.
The main room.
Main room. So this main room, you know, this is kind of a similar layout to how we had it before in our Airbnb. We had that fold out bed, so if we were having friends down here, whatnot, we could fold that up and there would be a bed in the middle of the room. Lots of natural light, a beautiful door, and yeah, nice beautiful accent wall that you can wake up to in the morning.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as like dark, I guess, too. But
yeah.
Not that this room feels dark anymore, but
yeah, you wake up to a nice accent wall and 2 big, nice windows that look out into some greenery that we have outside. So I thought that was a nice touch. Another thing is, originally where the armoire is now, we were thinking about putting like a dining table, like a little bistro dining table. And I still feel like that's a good idea, but we didn't have any closet space for guests. And this armoire that I have here is actually a hand-me-down from my great-grandmother. My mom had it in my sister's room. She gave it to me when I went to college. And it was a nice repurposed piece. Eric's mom helped to repaint it, which was super nice of her because it was a little banged up from being in a 5-year-old's bedroom for years. So that's kind of how that came to be. The black chairs we had purchased for our Airbnb previously as well, and they were just kind of a nice little sitting area where you could read, you know, just hang out. I had most of these plants upstairs because I am a plant freak, and while Eric was doing construction down here, I was collecting plants to keep me happy. Yeah. So I just kind of moved some of those ones down here. Most of these can do really well in dark light, even though we do have some natural light in the main room. You know, ultimately this is a basement, so I wanted them to be able to, you know, survive, and really wanted real plants down here. I see a lot of reno shows using fake plants, and I just think that, you know, It's nice. It's a nice element. It brings nice life to the space. And when you're using fake plants, you're not actually like cleaning the air. It gives the
You don't
look
get
of
the
it
same
without the like.
feeling to
Yeah, it gives the look of plants, which I love. But it doesn't really give you all the health benefits. You can tell if things are fake too, and then it just looks kind of cheap to me. So I really wanted to do real plants on here. So one of my friends gave me some cuttings from my Wandering Jew plant, and I put that here, and it really looks nice against the mauve wall because it has a nice purpley tone to it.
Is that the official word, or should we say something else? Do you think that's actually called that?
I think there is a actual full name to it, but it's really referred to as the Wandering Jew. I also purchased a small money tree from the clearance section in Lowe's for $3. It's super cute. And then my bird of paradise, which hopefully will bloom one day. I don't think I quite have enough humidity or light to it, but if it does, it's a white bloom, which is really cute. The bright orange artwork, I wanted something to really pop over the bed. I used to, in our old Airbnb, I had this little piece of furniture above the bed, but I thought it looked nicer in here with the rug, the whole bohemian vibe in here. So I wanted something to pop, since we have a lot of cool tones. So I found this really cool bright orange
It looks cool.
piece of artwork on Facebook Marketplace from a student who was moving. So thought it would be awesome, and thrifted it and put it over the bed, and I think it really pulls the space together and brings like a little fun element to that space, which is otherwise pretty calming. The other artwork in there I found at the Habitat store, just some floral artwork. I'm super into plants and flowers, and floral prints are kind of my thing. I do love a floral print. The rug underneath the bed I had purchased for upstairs, and when it came in the mail, the colors were slightly different than what I wanted for our living space upstairs. So it actually worked really well with the space down here. So I put it down here, kind of brightens up the floor a bit, defines the bed area, and brings in the mauve-y tone.
That's true.
Too, so it looks really nice.
So much thought, Gina.
I know.
Unintentional sometimes too.
Some pros to anxiety.
I don't think it's going to be last in the video, but our favorite
Bathroom?
is the bathroom, right?
Hey.
I mean, it's really the shower. I don't know if the toilet is that interesting. It is an eco-friendly one, so that's cool. And the vanity you redid looks really cool.
Yeah, the bathroom.
You're right. The bathroom might be our favorite.
I think the bathroom's our favorite.
Even though it's the place you poop.
Yeah. It's a nice ass place to be.
It's a nice ass place to poop.
Yeah, the bathroom layout is basically the same as it is right now. We did, Eric has showed like the before pictures, but the shower head and drainer essentially in the same spot.
But the bathroom in general before was very large. It was a huge bathroom.
Yeah.
So we knew that we were going to...
But it wasn't functional.
it.
Like it didn't work. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't functional.
It was a lot of square footage wise, but you didn't get the luxuries of a big bathroom. So we cut off part of the bathroom area, and we now have it as a little storage area.
All right, here we go. Another day, another demolition. We're kind of traveling through time here, but that's okay. Things happened at different times, people. Big first things to point out is save as much stuff as you can. The drywall was really hard to salvage, but all those panels you'll see, I'm kind of carefully removing them. I would put them up on Facebook Marketplace for free, and you'll be surprised what people come grab. So glad that other people can get use out of them. They were still in perfect condition. So really just be careful with demoing in general if you've got the time. Actually, I would say even if you don't have the time, make the time. Someone will take it, and it's good to reuse than go to a landfill forever. You'll see I'm a bit crazy with cleaning throughout too. I didn't have a big dumpster or anything, so was definitely taking things out in pieces, taking down the previous bulkhead straps that were there, all that ceiling vinyl I was able to give away. Not a great shot here, but I'm taking out a wall that was next to the water heaters. That whole space I'm in now will become the storage area, and you'll see the wall for the bathroom will be right about where that wall is starting right there. But I think I do a tour in a second here that'll give you a better sense of how that's all going to look. Right now I'm taking out all of the nails that were on those walls studs I just took down. Huge pain in the butt, but again, totally worth it because all of those studs can be reused for the same wall. So that's cool. We're on part 2 of the finished basement project in the bathroom here. You'll see the room we were working on before, and now this was a wall, as the time lapse will show. We took this out. It was an oversized bathroom, I'd say. So basically we're just going to move where this wall was all the way up to the window here, and then use this little space here as kind of like a closet storage room because we just lost all of our closet and storage. So we'll finish up all this. There was a door here. My arm is that you'll see I removed. We're going to make the shower a lot bigger, basically the whole size of this area. So to figure out how to do that at some point to make a new shower. I took the ceiling out. Couple issues. There's 2 junction boxes here, so I'm not supposed to put finished ceiling up unless these junction boxes are accessible. So I'm going to move them inside the wall here where my closet will be. Still finish it all off, but I'll be able to junction them in here instead of hiding them in the ceiling with a junction box, because that's not to code. We gotta be code friendly. Yeah, I think we have enough electricity running over here. We'll move this wire, this outlet. This will be where the shower is. So we're gonna have to move that on this side of the wall. There'll be a wall right here, dividing the bathroom and the storage room, which my storage room's feeling pretty small, but oh well. I was able to, you'll see in the video too, I stripped all the nails out of this. This wood's fine. Reuse the wood if you've got it, and if you've got time. Maybe it took me 45 minutes to pull all the nails, which you'll see on the ground here. It's a lot, but also a good thing if you're just moving a wall. These are all now cut to the length I need, so it's perfect. Once the pressure treated wood in the top plate goes on, this will be cut perfectly. Reuse what you got. We took out a lot of this, like Decor board too. Try and donate that stuff. We got a door we can donate. We got, what's the last thing? Oh, I saved a bunch of the ceiling planks too, which you'll see. I'll put a visual up for your reference now. And I was able to salvage most of them. They're just vinyl planks. Our next is going to be move the electricity, put up the rest of the framing, and then I think basically the whole basement's framed out except for the laundry room and storage closet. But once this is finished here, we'll be good to go. All right, so doing some electrical work inside the future storage area. You'll see in the next clip I talk about how I need to actually build the walls first so I can mount the outlets and the switches. But either way, it worked out fine. I had to rewire this armored cable that was running to the upstairs outlet, replacing it with a 14 gauge wire that you see kind of dangling there. I'll explain sort of the mess behind this in the next clip, but yeah, electrical. Super fun. Here's a little update. Got some new electrical work. This is my lone hot cable going to the panel. Instead of it being junctioned in the ceiling now, it's going to be junctioned here. One of these junctions to this other junction box, and the other one goes all the way to an outlet that's upstairs. And then off a new junction box here, I've got one going to an upstairs outlet and a second one that's going to be my new light switch right on this wall. And then I'm going to have two lights in the ceiling, one here and one here. It was hard to film a lot of this electrical work because I didn't have any outlets because I turned off all the breakers. But yeah, realizing every time I do one thing I need to do another step, like build a wall, frame it in so that I can hook up this wire to the light switch and get these lights in. I'll do a time lapse of the wall build though. And here's the time lapse of the wall build. Probably one of the more difficult walls I built because it was in the dark. I guess one of the good things was I got to reuse all those studs, so I didn't have to do too much cutting. You'll see I turned my main work light on and off because I was making sure I wasn't hitting a breaker, I think, or something wasn't plugged in that I was being cautious of. Oh, I think I was unplugging my work light to cut something or charge my nail gun or something. But yeah, try to get this wall in pretty quickly so I could finish wiring the electrical and not have to work in the dark anymore. So yeah, that wall is now the storage wall. I did have to rebuild it because, previously it just covered that entire door. So yeah, I got to reuse, all the studs and ran all the electrical through the ceiling. I put 2 new lights into that storage area. You'll see I'm mounting one of them now and the second one. And I didn't have any problems. Once I turned this on, the lights worked. So that's always a good feeling. And here you go. Power. Yay. And cleaning up. So moving on to the next wall, which will be the wall in between the storage area and the bathroom. That shower is going to be significantly bigger. It's about 9 feet by 4 feet. So that was a big upgrade from the 29-inch diameter shower, which you'll see us remove momentarily. Another appearance by Vinny for all the fun demolition here. So then moved on to demoing the rest of the bathroom. Now that I had my main walls in place, did the same thing as before, tried to save a lot of these panels. Someone was rebuilding their interior part of their shed, so they were able to use those panels. Just be careful when removing a vanity. Make sure you disconnect all the water lines, the drain lines. I had a little bit of trouble doing that. But the biggest thing here was getting this shower out. I think they built the walls maybe around it, but that wouldn't really make sense. So I'm not really sure how they got this thing in there, because it was not easy to remove, which is why I had to remove all of the drywall, which I didn't intend to do because I ended up replacing all the drywall. But you'll see the glue on the back of the panels really messed up the drywall too, so I would have had a heck of a time redoing a lot of that. But yeah, removing the shower was quite the pain. Took the drywall out, then I ended up removing all the studs, moving the water lines that were there, the PEX water lines. And yeah, you'll see some drywall there I'm taking out. I'm trying to figure out where all the screws were, because the physical fiberglass shower was screwed into the studs. So finding where those were located was fun. Ended up just shaking the shower a lot to see what the points of conflict were and getting that thing out. So you'll see I end up removing the bulkhead here, and this is where I discovered my sink pipe upstairs was probably about to burst. That's the drain pipe for my upstairs kitchen sink. And I even brought my neighbor in to be like, what the heck's up with this? So yeah, that's an original, steel pipe that got corroded. So that motivated me to just rip out the entire ceiling and bathroom, because I knew I was going to have to replace that steel pipe with a new drain pipe, because it was very slowly dripping, and you'll see some huge rust spots. But yeah, I capped the end of the PEX pipes there, the water, and was able to just wiggle that shower out of place. And I had Vinny help me move it to the outside. Someone took that shower too, so I'm glad it went to a new home. Again, reuse what you can. People will take anything. So here I'm taking down the old bulkhead, and really had to take this thing down to the studs. You'll also see I have a new drain pipe there too. So in between the last clip and this, I had my plumber come out and do that. Plumbing was probably one of the only things I didn't do. Actually, that's not entirely true. I redid a lot of the shower plumbing after I made a new bulkhead, which was fun. But the template was kind of already in place, so I felt comfortable, just doing the PEX piping, which is pretty easy to work with, pretty easy to cut, pretty easy to install, adapters and extenders, and make that happen. So you'll see here, I'm framing out. This is another example of, adjusting the plan on the spot. I realized I wanted another foot of space when you walk out of the shower, before that kind of wall butts over. So I ended up moving all the electrical and all the studs over about 16 inches. So it gave us a little more space in the bathroom and cut into the storage area a little bit, which was okay. Here, just doing the rough framing for the built-in shelf. Really trying to just finalize all my studs in this room. And yeah, you'll see a built-in shelf in a bit too. Now quickly moving over to installing the fan, which I did this a little bit out of order. I should have built the bulkhead first completely, but you'll see I end up doing that, or forced to do that after I get this fan installed. This was pretty simple though. It's a 4-inch mortar bit that just takes a long time. You just got to be patient and slow. And that's just so I can run the ductwork to the outside. But it was a pretty straightforward process. I used the Flex 4-inch duct. Maybe it's 3.5 inch. I forget. It might be 3.5 inch. I think a dryer's 4. And you'll see I have part of my bulkhead installed here just so I can mount this light and fan to that bulkhead, which was pretty simple. It's just hold on by 2 screws. You got to make sure that you have the right clearance for the drywall underneath it. And then I really replaced a previous light fixture that was there with this light and fan. So I'm running that ductwork from the storage room over to the fan, and then just cap it on and put it in. Pretty simple. But there was not a fan in this space before, obviously, which is why I felt the need to install one. We used to tell people to open that little window to let the moisture out, but no more. And you'll see I reference the manual whenever installing something, which I think goes without saying, but yeah. Here I'm installing the rest of the bulkhead, which is kind of moot at this point because I end up redoing this entire bulkhead, but I don't think I took a video of it because I was too frustrated. My main issue was once I got the bulkhead up and I was standing on the floor of the shower when that gets installed, I realized, this is kind of low for someone who's 6'2" like me, and a lot of people that are over 6 feet. It would have been too cramped, so I felt the need to move that entire bulkhead up about 1.5 inches, which was a super fun and painful realization. So yeah, that gets done and it's not documented. Here I am again, putting up insulation. I don't think the bathroom really had any ceiling insulation before when I ripped it out, so that'll help again with soundproofing and keeping the area cool and temperate based on the time of year. You'll see up here is all new piping. When you replace one drain pipe, you had to replace some other ones as well, so the plumber did a nice job doing all of that. $2,000 later. I think installing this insulation in the wall was a bit of a mistake, but I don't really remember why. I remember I had to redo it for some reason. Maybe I didn't finish running electrical. I don't know. Whatever. Here it is going in, so that's cool. You'll see that last spot there. That's my sink vanity. And it's not vented through the roof. It's just vented out into the space, just so air can get behind there. Before it was blocked off, but I added a grate so that air could get behind it, which is really what your plumbing system needs. It needs air to move water through properly and to drain properly. That's some good looking insulation. And here it is again. Time for some drywalling and mudding in the bathroom. Super fun. You know the drill here, people. Maybe I'll just cue the music. Or who knows, maybe I'll break up each video and talk about it separately. So if that's the case, then maybe I'll talk some more about hanging drywall. Using my T-square there to cut the drywall, pop it out with your hands, score it. Pretty simple. Hoist it into place, put 5 or 6 screws in for the 4 feet. I think it's 5 screws. 5 screws minimum. 2 screws will hold up the piece of drywall though for you to then get it in there. You'll see I messed up cutting that around that outlet, but I didn't want to waste that piece of drywall, so I will just fix that after. I also think in hindsight I probably could have just found that for other places, but alas, I just filled that hole in after. So here I'm doing the drywalling around the built-in bookshelf, which is cool. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Wanted it to be symmetrical on the wall. And here we go. Patching up that little piece there. I'm a pro, baby. So now we're already into mudding. Eric, you are cruising. Cruising. So I'm laying down some drywall mud, then I'm going to put that piece of tape on, and then I'm going to make sure it's wet afterwards. I'm going to go back over it with the mud so that it all dries evenly. And yeah, the bathroom's definitely our favorite. Everything came together really nicely. A little bit higher ceilings than before, so that's great.
And then the whole back wall now is the shower. And, the plumber was really mad at me. He was like, this is too big. You don't need this to be that big. And I was like, listen.
It's going to be that big.
It's going to be that big. We need a wow factor. And we knew we wanted a large shower head too. So, to get to get a large shower head and not
Yeah.
have like a door and feel enclosed, to have that open walkway and just glass, you really need some space. So,
I've
yeah.
definitely seen big showers before, but I don't think I've ever seen one as big as what we did down here, which is kind of cool. It's super cool. And here we go. This is the one big project that I did not undertake. Tiling was complicated despite watching hours of videos of it and thinking I can do it. This just made things kind of keep going though too while I was working on other stuff in other places of the basement. So we got Kate here from Blue Crab Carpentry. I'll make sure to link them in the notes as well if you live in the Virginia area. I'm sure she'd be down. She's an amazing contractor, knows everything, gave me a couple little tips on other stuff I was working on. So Kate is the greatest. So yeah, she did this whole reno here. And I'm blanking on the dude's name that was here a lot, so I feel bad. Sorry, dude. So yeah, what did Kate do here? So before I kind of jumped right into the tiling. I didn't do time lapses of all their work, but they built the shower ledge there. They put up all the the Schluter, which is like the waterproof drywall. And then they red coat it. So that's like basically like a liquid rubber, like it dries into like a rubber. And then you have to put that special sort of sealant around your seams. I had my plumber move that drain pipe a little bit so it was centered with the shower. I know that was kind of a pain because they had to break up all that concrete. And then Kate had to come in and lay some more concrete down. But yeah, she was great. She definitely knows what she's doing. And we call this like the Greek bathhouse because it is a 9-foot by 4-foot shower and it's pretty incredible. I think she did a 1/3 offset as well, just like I did on the floors. I like that look. Gina did a great job picking out the tiles. I think she's going to talk about that in a minute. And I know a little bit about what Kate's doing because I watched enough of the videos. So yeah, tiles all about grouting. The floor is a little tricky, I know, because you got to kind of cut these weird pieces, but she was so good at laying these hexagon tiles down. I've seen some where people don't get it as precise. It's definitely a lot of math involved in trial and error, and you want to kind of, I don't know if I had a video of her laying it all out first, but I guess that's kind of what she's doing now. She's trying to find the perfect combination so that it looks nice and even and level. And yeah, did she ever? So I think, yeah, I don't even think she's started actually putting it on the floor yet too. She's kind of getting the formula down. Yeah, I think cutting around, making that little shower niche was a little difficult because we just used, the custom tile. So that was a little tricky, I think, to make work well. We added this metal trim pieces around all the edges. I think she'll do that last, but that looks really nice. Yeah, I wish I knew more about tiling. I know those are spacers to get the perfect, width in between each tile every time. And then I think it's a matter of constantly mixing the grout and going outside and using water and then bringing a bucket in. I think this is all done though before I laid the floors down. So that was obviously a good idea. Yeah, she's got all the walls up now. And now we're doing the hexagon tile, doing the final little pieces on the bottom, which, man, this looks so good. It's definitely the wow factor. 20-inch rainfall shower head. Yeah, it's incredible. I think I should take the last few seconds of this little segment here and talk about how awesome Kate is. Probably not a typical tile person, right? Like someone that knows how to do everything makes it all a lot easier. So they were hanging the ceiling drywall for me. I paid them extra to do that, and they were kind of making some little improvisations along the way where I feel like a tile person, like I come in and do tile, but she did tile and she did it all. So thank you, Kate. Thanks, Blue Crab. Let's cut back to Eric and Gina. It's 9 feet by 4 feet.
Yeah.
And before it was 30 inches in diameter. So yeah, 2.5 feet around.
Yeah.
It's a nice upgrade.
Yeah.
The rainfall shower itself is 20 inches. So
20 by 20, right?
Yeah, 20
yeah,
by
it's
20.
a nice. Oh my gosh, it's big. The shower is the one thing that Eric didn't do either, but I really was selective on my tile choices because I wanted them to be timeless. The like marbly look that I went with, my grandma has had on her floors for like ever, and I always loved them. So I was like, if I've loved them my whole life, I'll probably love them my whole life in the future too. So we went to a local tile shop, spent a while picking stuff out. I didn't want anything super grainy, because I really wanted it to feel bright in there still, since there's only one small window in the shower. So I went with like a nice white marbly look. They are eco-friendly. They're made with some recycled materials.
Porcelain? What's style?
They are porcelain. They're not marble, but it's a marble look.
Yeah.
And then we went with a matching.
Sort of penny tile.
They're not pennies, but they're like a mini hexagon shape. And yeah. And then we ordered some glass from a local glass shop. But outside of the shower, I really wanted a nice wooden bath mat too. We have one upstairs just because I'm like really weird. I don't like stepping on like a wet shower mat. And I just felt like when you're flipping Airbnbs, it's way more sanitary. It's easier to clean.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not like getting moldy or anything. So I went with a nice wooden bath mat there, and then a nice wooden teak bench in the shower to match.
Yeah, it looks great. The vanity is a big reno. You want to talk about that?
It was a nice project of mine. I really liked the vanity down there. Originally, it had some nice little woodwork pieces to it, but I knew I didn't want blue anymore, even though I did really like the blue when we toured it.
Yeah.
And it didn't really go with the design down here anymore. I wanted it to feel more like spa-like. And I knew I wanted to do like a butcher block top, and I didn't think that really went with a blue color.
So yeah, my work on this was minimal-ish. I'm cutting off all the moldy, waterlogged wood, put a new 3/4 inch piece of wood on the bottom for stability. Added a bunch of wood glue, made all this seams seamless. And yeah, then just helped Gina sand a little bit, and then she kind of took over from there, adding the legs and the paint. A little reinforcement on the back there.
My vision for that was to paint it black.
Elevator off the floor.
See a blue vanity, and I want to paint it black. And then I
see a blue vanity. Yeah, that's funny.
So I had like regular molding around the bottom. Cut that off, put some peg legs on it, made it look more modern, painted those black to match, and then the bottoms were silver, and I painted them a brassy color. Yeah, we did a lot to save that vanity, which, I don't think it was a super expensive vanity to begin with, but we made it look very expensive, I think. Just repainted everything in this nice shiny... It's a door and trim paint, so it's easy to clean, and it looks really nice.
Super nice.
The butcher block, the sink, I really wanted this nice clean vessel sink. This one was back ordered, which I thought was going to be an issue, but we got it in, and that's one of the perks to this project taking longer than we thought.
Yeah, we weren't waiting for one thing to get here. There was plenty of things to do in the meantime, all the time.
I'm personally just like the pop-up drain.
Yeah, quick little mounting thing here. Just add a little silicone to the butcher block and then drop it on the vanity.
So we went with a nice porcelain white vessel sink, and then went ahead with a matte black faucet to match.
Yeah, now I think I'm doing the plumbing for the drain. I actually ended up having to redo this whole thing, but you know what? We'll leave the time lapse in here and pretend that the first time worked out just fine. Yeah, it's a little difficult, but not too difficult. Our rough end to the P-trap to a 90. 1.5 inch little slope here into the wall. Is it in focus? I don't think Gina mentioned before, but she got those nice brass handles too from the Habitat store, so repurposed as much as we could. I think that we knew we wanted the built-in bookshelf in there too, right?
Yeah, I really wanted some built-in shelving. The kitchenette space in general had a little extra space, and we had experimented with doing like more of an L shape for the kitchenette, but there wasn't enough space to do that. And so then I was like, it didn't really, we just needed one small area for the kitchenette. And so we decided to close up the wall there. And put some built-in shelving that way. And I think it came out really nice. Perfect storage for like towels and lotion, and have a nice little salt lamp and toilet paper.
I think the main thing I learned about doing built-in shelving is obviously build the shelf first and then mount it in place. Maybe that's obvious, but I remember I added a built-in shelf in my upstairs, and I did not do that. And that was stupid. Build it first and then shim it in place and then screw it all together. It looks so much cleaner. And then I just use like drywall mudding around the edges there. And yeah, as you can see, it's 3 shelves. I think they were 10 inches deep, I want to say, and maybe a foot high. All mudding really helps make it look nice and flush. So I did that, and then I caulked the insides and like all the seams on the inside, and then painted. And it was great. And there's the beauty shot of it. Yay. Oh no, more prep and priming and painting. Yeah, I gotta cover up that beautiful tile, people. I think this is a pretty short section. I skipped a lot of the steps, but emphasize the preparation work on this shower. You gotta protect that tile from getting any kind of paint on it. We did the same thing we did on the other stuff for lime wash. I threw up the PVA primer first, then another primer for the lime wash paint, and then 2 coats of paint, and then 1 coat of the acrylic seal. And here I am using that little orbital sander, and then the hand sander, and then, oh, I guess it's done. Look at that. I didn't record all of it, but there you go. Finishing up the vinyl floor installation. This all happened obviously after all the painting was done. And yeah, it worked out really well. I'm super excited how this came together. It's really fun to do the final steps too, you know. Floor and then trim and then all the little touch-ups. And boy, is it beautiful. This'll probably be everybody's favorite part, a toilet installation. It's about 20 seconds long. There I am putting the flange in. New flange. It's pretty easy. Put a wax seal on the bottom of the toilet, then push it down. Then you kind of mess around with those screws on the flange to make sure it's level, front to back, side to side. Put the tank on, screw it into place, set up the valves, and that's a toilet install, baby. I think I do a nice thumbs up for you too after this. Yeah. There he is.
The door to the bathroom,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like what I've talked about with the molding, is I really wanted the doors to match our
rest of the
upstairs
house.
doors. So I had to go on eBay, and I found the door that was, timely to the house and matched our upstairs door. So
Legit like antique door too, right?
yeah.
It was like a website that has all these old doors.
Yeah,
And you're able to get it.
Yeah, it was, the door itself wasn't that expensive. I tried to find it at the Habitat store, but they didn't have the same design with the same dimensions that I needed. So the door itself wasn't that bad, but shipping the door was pretty expensive.
real wood,
It's
so-
real wood, and it was kind
It's
of
a big door.
expensive. But resurfaced and painted it, and it just looks beautiful. And I love that it matches all the doors upstairs. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the glass handles to match the laundry room, and we have those upstairs too. So
And let's start with a mistake. Dun dun dun. I did the wrong depth for the glass knobs that Gina bought. So that hole right there is too far into the door. I had to patch it and redo that hole. So be careful with the depth of the door handle you bought. There's 2 depths usually, and I did the wrong one. Here we're making a frame again. You know the deal. 3 little pieces of wood tacked together, and then you'll have the door stopper all around. Some people just put the door stopper on last. I think that's what I ended up doing in this case. So I'm going to drill these into each other, use my little square to make sure it's right. And I'm doing this one barefoot, it looks like, because, we're almost done. I see the baseboard trims in. The doors are getting in. This is exciting, people. We're at the home stretch. We're at the 3-hour mark. So yeah, here's this a little bit in slow motion here. Just to make sure that it's perfectly level. Tack some screws in. Call it a day. I think some people put wood glue in between too. I pre-drilled holes too, that's key. Pre-drill the holes so you don't split the wood, and then put your screws in. Good, I'm glad I showed a close-up of that, because I don't do a lot of close-ups, because I was trying to move. I needed a wide angle so I could move around. And it looks like, did I cut? Yeah, I might have cut them before, but I think I tacked them on after. The door stoppers. Well, that was a fun break for a second. A little gnat sound of what it was like to work in the basement. You know the drill here too, making sure that top plate is nice and level. I'm throwing a shim in there because it wasn't level. It was a little weird. It was a little wonky. And the door did fit super snugly. I had to plane it out. And here's a close-up of putting up the hinges, kind of showing you what I do. Hold it in place, draw the outline, and then chisel. Replicate that on the door. You kind of got to visualize everything beforehand. I think that kind of helps. Just to make sure, your hinges going the right way, and yeah, you just don't make any mistakes, because mistakes are hard. And here goes the vanity light. Well, that electrical's already there, so that made it easy. Turned off the circuit breakers. Make sure you do that, people, when you're playing with fire. And then, yeah, we found this nice modern square-ish looking spa-like, as Gina said, fixture to put above the sink. She found an awesome gold mirror too, so I love this vanity. And now we're at the legit home stretch here. I'm doing decor and beauty shots, people. That's what you got left. Me installing blinds. I think I was like, this is my last time lapse I'm doing for this project. And it's really not that interesting. But you know what? Not all of construction is. Or not all of decor is. I think I just didn't want to hate on Gina's, whole thing here, right? Like, and show a lot of her work. The disco balls going up. We at least show this art wall going up, which looks amazing. And I think Gina's going to talk about it.
So when I was designing the space, I really wanted this to feel like a destination for our Airbnb, but also to be functional for us. I, in general, love like a bohemian style with some like antique vintage elements. So that was kind of the inspiration. I felt pretty overwhelmed, so I ended up ordering quite a few design books to just read. Because I don't know, I just felt like I was gonna make wrong decisions, or like some of the colors would clash, and I didn't really know the rules to anything. And really, when I was reading those books, they're like, there are no rules, but it just helped me put different color palettes together. So one of the books that I drew inspiration from was the Jungalow book, which is kind of more of a bohemian style to it, and I just love the way she designs things. They're
That's
neutrals with like pops of color, and she really blends different colors really well, and she makes everything look like a destination, like an Airbnb that you would want to stay at. So that's kind of where I drew my main inspiration from. I personally like a lot of cool tones, so a lot of the colors in here are very like cool and relaxing.
Yeah, I get that vibe.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that was kind of my inspiration. And then obviously I love the spa like vibe for the bathroom.
Especially the bathroom, yeah.
I would love that upstairs, and that's what we're gonna work towards. But
Next video.
Yeah. But yeah. And we really wanted to be sustainable and reuse as much as we could as possible. So when looking for items, even if they didn't give off like a right away bohemian vibe, if you style them or like have enough bohemian elements otherwise, you can really make those items work in the space.
In hindsight, that really made your job a lot harder too, because you couldn't just pick everything out new, which is what I think that they do in all these like reality shows. Is they can design a whole room and purchase it, and there it shows up exactly how you want. But this, you kind of had to like pick and choose and adapt.
Yeah.
And based on, different things on Facebook or Craigslist or whatever. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Nice job. And I think the reviews speak for themselves, Gina. Everyone seems to comment on the shower and the decor design. So no one's commenting on my crafty handiwork.
A couple of people said they did a really nice renovation.
Okay, so
they can tell it was renovated.
Generally, that's my compliment.
Yeah. Well,
as people are booking it, that's fine if they're paying for it. But the showers and the decor, that's the big sell.
Yeah.
So nice job, Gina.
Thank you.
It was a fun project overall. I think we learned a lot.
I'm glad we're filming this, so I feel more positive about the project a year after we started it.
Yeah, it's been over a year.
Because we were over it. We were over it. Being stuck and quarantined in a house where you're also renovating, you just can't get away. You can't get away. You can't take a break. And
yeah, there was a pressure to always feel like, should I be downstairs doing work on the basement? Yeah. So that was always in the back of your head for months. I probably got a little perfectionist about it because I watched the hours of video,
which is good because we know it's done right. And so a lot of the video you'll see me sitting on a bar stool watching him work. But in my head I'm like designing these, like making these like changes and adaptations to my style, I think. And I
think you appreciate more like why a house looks nicer and not cheaper. I think with like trim pieces and stuff, like I totally see why you just go to some like box store for like basic trim and
Like the MDF.
MDF and just
Yeah.
throw it up, and it looks kind of nice, but you totally see like your 3/4 inch wood that we rounded and like put a legit, trim pieces together to make things stand out. So like with the baseboards too, doing a 2-piece baseboard, I think you really notice the differences in that, and adding the corner bead and all that. So I think a lot of the things that were a lot more work, but totally look, so much better than if we kind of took the cheap, easy way out.
Personally, there's nothing really I would do differently, but we did have a lot of time to think about it. And I think that's one of the good things about how long this project took is,
True.
Silver
lining.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I changed my mind on, and you changed your mind on throughout the project, which, I love the space. You love the space. Guests love the space.
Hire us.
Friends love
Pay
the
us.
space.
Yeah. Pay us thousands of dollars to redo your space.
Thanks for listening to my TED Talk about design from an untrained interior designer.
And watching a bunch of construction from an untrained construction person. But yeah, this was fun. All 3 hours of it. Maybe longer now. Maybe it was like 3.5 hours.
Worth it. I hope you enjoyed it. Made some popcorn. Maybe some Swedish fish. Maybe some Mike and Ike's. Maybe some snow caps.
Super fun project. Glad it's over. At some point we'll do our upstairs and we'll make a video about that.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.